All right. Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Friday. Yes, here we are. It's time to live stream. It's time for Friday night chat. How's it going? How's it going? I see. Ooh, the chat is busy already. We are anticipating honeys. So today we're just going to go over the second Republican debate, and I think it's enough material to go over tonight that we can just make this a singular thing. So, I haven't seen it yet. I tried to keep things. It's really hard to not watch things and then save it for Fridays sometimes because I'm like, I want to know what's going on. But I also want to show this to you with like a raw reaction from me. So it's really hard. It's like on the one hand, it's like, do I want to watch it and be, I don't know, somewhat prepared, or do I want like a raw reaction? So I'm trying to lean to more towards raw reaction, anyways. Tons of people in the chat tonight. The chat's not up. Ah! Hold on. There we go. We got it now. Thank you. Thank you, Cassidy. Oh my god, Halloween Mom. Thank you so fucking much for the super chat. That's amazing. Says, oh, absolutely not. Politics is the quickest energy drain. Love you all, though. Enjoy. Fair enough. And I really appreciate the shoe super chat. I think Pyro Tattooer, I think I saw you mention like you're like, I don't want to watch this again. Hey, you don't have to. I tend to save things for Friday if you want to check out what's going on and catch up with it with me. If not, I totally understand. But anyways, good to see you all. I see Cassidy. Thank you so much for helping me keep my chat in line. You know, make sure it's up to date. We got Laura. We got Wickham. I don't know how to pronounce that. Wickham, Chi. I know I've seen you around. Good to see you. Oh, and Halloween Mom became a member of the channel. Thank you so much. Let's do disco balls in the chat for Halloween Mom. We'll do disco balls. Thank you so much, Lee, for giving me a super chat. I really appreciate that. It says the world is getting weirder and weirder. I'm glad to have a great group of weirdos to be with. Yes. It's good to stick together, you know. More disco balls. Hold on. Just hold on 2 seconds. I'll be right back. All right, we're back. All right, we got Daniel Mill, Donkey Disco Ball. Okay, I don't know what that means. Thank you, though. Good to see you. Katrina Gatsby, Crystal Mason, good to see you. Scroll up. Oh, wait, what? Did I miss something? I'm not seeing it. Oh my god. Okay, so yeah, we're just gonna go over like the second like debate, and I think it's just like enough material to go over tonight first I need to open a window for it. So, anybody have a good week? Anything cool going on? Like, what's happening? What's happening, my friends? I'm gonna pour some fresh root beer in my cup of ice. So the reason and this is just random information. So the reason I have disco ball emojis is because the phrase disco inferno quite literally translates to through suffering I learn. And I think that that's in a way something really cool. Through suffering I learn. Now I have a lot of thoughts about the actual term suffering, but in general, I think that's such a fabulous thing. Disco inferno, through suffering I learned. So that's why we do the disco balls. And I just happen to be really into disco music. Like, I love disco music a lot. I listen to it a lot. Disco house, house music, like, that's kind of the thing. So that's why I just love Disco Inferno. And so I do the disco balls. Disco is good. Hello, the compete de I cannot pronounce your name, I'm sorry. That's my fault, not yours. Compte di Cagliostro. Compa di Cagliostro? Compa di Cagliostro? I don't know. Is that it? All right, we'll just wait like just a couple more minutes to let people get in. In the meantime, ask me anything you want. Talk about anything you want. Share random information with me if you would like. We're just going to wait a couple more minutes for people to get in, and then we're going to get started on watching the second Republican primary debate. I am not in any way an expert on politics or anything like that. In fact, I don't think I've really gotten into politics till I've been aware of it. It's not like I've been purposefully aloof. I haven't really invested trying to understand a lot of things until the pandemic, really. So it's a lot of this is I'm interested. I want to start getting into this stuff. I want to know what's going on, and I'm taking you on the journey with me. Who is your least favorite Republican? For Daniel Miller says the least favorite Republican for them is Mitch McConnell. For me, yeah. I have a friend with a little tortoise that he calls Mitch McConnell, Senator McConnell. It's kind of cute. It's really appropriate name, little grumpy Senator McConnell, stomping around eating some bugs. That's what I think of when I think of Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell, god damn, he literally is a bag of rats. I'm not even joking. Mitch McConnell literally is an empty, human skin full of, empowered and perpetuated by rats. There's just a bunch of rats in, a human, skin bag. I don't know how to explain it. Has anybody been seeing the things with Mitch McConnell? Pretty much, seeing the fucking Grim Reaper? He just blanks out. Where is it? Mitch McConnell. Oh my god, it's so funny. Yes, okay. Mitch McConnell. I just fucking... I don't know what it is with him. He's dead. I don't know how to explain it. Honeys, he's dead. He's already dead. This is surely some, Frankenstein, like...
About what?
Running for re-election in 2026.
That's,
Right there. Right there, he's seeing the Grim Reaper across the room. That's calling to him.
Did you hear
And
the
that's not my
question,
joke. That's
running for
like what I hear
re-election
from
in
other people.
2026?
I love... Okay. I love how fast she... And, like, intensely she zooms in on him to try to, like, click him out of that. Like... I gotta see it. Just the melt. What's going on? Like, how many meds is he
Thoughts on
on?
running for re-election in 2026.
what are my thoughts about what?
Running for re-election in 2026.
That's,
Did you hear the question, Senator? Running for re-election in 2026? All right, I'm sorry, you all. We're going to need a minute.
and a string of,
Look, I don't care for Biden. I really don't. I don't really like him at all. But when people talk about Sleepy Joe and shit like that, I'm like, okay, but what about Mitch? Okay, man's like literally like got like the circular progression bar of like a MacBook. Like, come on. Honey. Honey, honey, honey. Honey, woohoo, honey, come on now.
Okay, Mitch? Anything else you want to say, or should we just go back to it?
No, I don't care for Biden. And it really sucks because I talk about Trump a lot and then people are like, you're just a Biden lover. And it's like, I never said that. I literally never said that. Nor will I ever. All right.
Carl Rowe, thank you very much.
Susan! Hello! Thank you so much for coming. Daniel says his eyes are creepy as fuck. I mean, it's like, I don't know how to explain it. The man's already dead. Does anybody else... Okay, put a 1 in the chat if you think he's already dead. Like, literally, it's just like a mechanical, like, puppetry of, like, a corpse. Like, there's gotta be some rats inside that skin, right? They're all just, like, in there, or, like, a little alien or something. Like, come on. Like, he's dead, right? He's dead. They're just puppeting him at the podiums, like... Lizard, alien, robot person from... I mean, like, I don't like any of that conspiracy shit. I think it's dumb. But he literally is, like, some alien in a skin, and he needs a new skin or something. Like, the man is done. 1 in the chat if he's already dead. I'm just saying, he's like a puppeteered corpse. One. Yeah. All right. Our founding fathers must be rolling in their graves right now. I honestly don't give a shit about the founding fathers. Fuck those old ass people. They don't know what's going on right now. That's just my opinion. I just really don't care about them. We need a new constitution, let's face it. We need something that's more up to date. I'm so tired of, like, constitutional literalists. Are we ready for this? Are we ready for the shenanigans? Are we ready to are we ready to get into this? I think so. Let's throw, okay, everybody get your snacks, get your drinks, okay, get your bum pillow, get your lower back pillow, all right? Make sure you feed the cat, feed the dog, whatever, so they don't bug you. Put the kids in a room with a movie. I'm just trying to think of all these things. Water the plants. I don't know. Go pee. Yeah, everybody pee. Get your drink. Get your snacks. Feed the cat. And then let's go. How is my rattlesnake? She's doing well. Yeah, you know, sometimes I feel bad because I don't really pay attention to her. I mean, and not in the sense that I'm neglecting. I mean, like, she literally is a rattlesnake in a tank and you can't interact with it. And so it's like, sometimes I'm just like, I don't know. Like, I wish she could be, like, in the wild. The problem is, though, is she's captive bred. So she's only spent her entire life, like, in captivity. Her name is Donut. Because she curls up like a little donut. But the thing is like, I can't release her in the wild. That would be really cruel because she doesn't understand. Like, a predator would come up to her and she'd be like, why aren't you dropping the food? What's going on? Like, I don't get it. Like, she's so domesticated, so... But she's fine, you know what I mean? It's not like it's like reptiles. Reptiles don't really need social interaction at all. They're just kind of like, fine. Oh, so I couldn't release her anyways? No, she would die. Like, if she was wild caught, like, if somebody caught her in the wild and then she was a pet for a minute, I could release her back in the appropriate location as long as it's indigenous, and she'd be fine. But, like, she's not. It's like, you know, a hawk would fly up to her and she'd be like, what's this? Like, she's too inquisitive and dumb and she doesn't know what anything is. So, I'm just gonna keep her safe, and she's fine. She's not miserable, by the way. That's not what I mean. It's me and my human emotions, and I attribute my human emotions to it. Like, gee, aren't you bored, like, living your life in this, like, enclosure? And it's like, yeah, but, like, she's reptile-brained, so she doesn't have those complicated thoughts. In her mind, she's like, I'm not bothered by anybody, and I get food that drops magically from the sky. And I get some sunshine and some warmth, and then I get to go to sleep. Like, but in my mind, because I'm too complex for that sort of, like, avatar functioning, I'm like, God, it's gotta be a boring life. That's just kind of like how I feel about, like, having pets in general. It's like people are like, pure animal liberation, like, liberate all the animals. And I'm like, do you know how many animals are dumb because of us? Like, we kind of have a responsibility to rectify that or take care of that. We can't just, like, release animals into the wild and be like, yay, you know. Except for in some instances, you know, I made the mistake. I used to think that, like, you couldn't release, like, whales, like, killer whales and, like, dolphins back in the wild after they've been, like, captive for so long. But there's actually a lot of studies that show that they can. So now I'm, like, a firm believer of, like, get rid of all the dolphins and whales. Like, don't keep them. Like, we shouldn't be keeping those. Get rid of them. Laura says, it's good that you feel that way. Shows you have empathy and respect for life in general. Oh, thank you. Well, I mean, yeah, I think about it in perspective, like, would I like to stay in a box forever? But, like, we don't think the same. Me and the snake don't think the same. For me, that seems, like, boring and horrible, but for the snake, it's like, there's no predators. Like, this is great. I get to just sit here, and I don't have to struggle, so. Anyways, if anybody's just coming in the room, I'm talking about my pet rattlesnake. Yes, I have a rattlesnake. No, I don't touch it. No, I don't do anything with it. I just keep it in a tank and feed it and leave it alone. Kind of like a fish, you know? Some people are like, why would you have a pet you can't touch? And I'm like, why do you have fish if you can't touch it? And usually that ends the conversation. Like, what? You have to take your fish for a walk? What's the point of that? When it comes to reptiles, either you have a reptile that you can interact with, and it likes to interact with you. Not necessarily like, but it doesn't mind. Or you can have some reptiles that are literally just like a display piece. And that doesn't mean you think of it as less, or you don't take care of it. You take care of it and you love it, but it's like you don't touch it. And for me, it's like I don't need that interaction. I can just like admire it in its peaceful state. Anyways, politics. Yes, so shall we get on, my lovelies? I have to do my allergy spray, by the way, up the nose. Like, I know it looks... I have to do this, sorry. Alright, let's do rattlesnakes in the chat if we want to get this going. Rattlesnakes in the chat, since we're talking about snakes. By the way, that rattlesnake emoji is of an actual picture of the snake I'm talking about, so I actually took that image, like a picture of my rattlesnake, and then like fixed it up so it could be a small emoji. Jan's nice but not too nice. It's true. I am nice. I'm really fucking nice, okay? I'm so fucking nice. How about an S? Yeah, that works. There's also like the regular snake emoji. You can do that too. It's really cute. It looks funny in comparison to the one I make because it's like the goofy cartoon version of it, but it still works. But yeah, snakes in the chat. Should we get going? I think we should get going. Also, before we start, tomorrow's the last day of September. As of October 1st, I am going to be giving up vaping cold turkey because it's costly, it's too convenient, and I love it too much. And it's just like something I feel like it's just a little too much. So I'm going to go cold turkey October from the vape. So this is like the last live stream I'm going to be vaping. And we'll see how it goes. I'm probably going to be grumpy for a bit, but I'm determined to do it. I'm going to quit vaping. Vaping made your teeth start to rot? Oh my, I'm not having teeth rotting problems. I know some people, like, I saw something where some guy literally lost his lower jaw, like, for vaping, but anyway, so I'm gonna start quitting vaping. I was gonna wait till, November, and I was gonna go, like, no nicotine November, but I decided to start this month instead. So I'm gonna have to like take all my vape stuff and literally throw it away. It's honestly, I feel like it's a bit harder than quitting cigarettes because when you're smoking cigarettes, you have to go outside. It smells. It's a big like production. Like when I vape, it's convenient. It doesn't smell and it's always right here. In fact, I joke that it's like my binky, like my pacifier, because I constantly, as I'm doing this motion. Great, Jen. Good for the people to do that. But no, it's like, it's this hand to mouth thing, and it's like always here in my hand, and I'm always poofing on it, so it's just like, I want to try and dodge out of that, because I think it would be better for me. But it is like harder than cigarettes, I think, because it's too convenient, but it's really expensive, especially in California. California's tobacco tax is like so horrendous, okay? So horrendous. Oral fixation. Oh, yeah. See, vaping helped me quit cigarettes, so it was so justifiable for the longest time. But now I'm just like, I vape so much. Like, I blow through these cartridges like they're nothing, and I'm like, this isn't good. What is not expensive in California? Hi, I'm from Oregon. Yeah, everything's expensive in California. Yeah, I mean, like, this helped me, like, stay off cigarettes, but now it's, like, its own problem. So I'm like, great, now what do I do? Sip the air like this? I smoke air. Anyways, let's do it. Let's start. Let's go. We're starting it. Everybody, you ready? Are you ready? I've asked that like 10 times. We're going. Let's go.
Brett, thank you. Good luck to Dana and to the others. Thanks for watching, folks. Second Republican primary debate starts right now.
High in the hills of California's Simi Valley stands a monument to one of the most beloved leaders in our nation's history, Ronald Reagan. The Gipper, the great communicator, America's 40th.
Reagan!
He railed against big government.
The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
And sought peace through strength.
What better way to start this off with a little applaud to Reagan?
Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
40 years after Reagan's landslide re-election, the Republican Party faces critical questions. What does it mean to be a conservative?
We fight for the truth.
We are not going to worry about what the left and the media say about us.
What is the key to a thriving economy?
It's innovation, not regulation.
America could do for anyone what she's done for me.
We will stop the spending. We will stop the borrowing. We will stop the earmarks.
What is America's role in the world?
We need to build a military fitted to the widening challenges in an ever more dangerous world.
Sometimes you avoid war by showing you're tough.
And the country faces even more challenges. Would Reagan...
This is too dramatic. All of this is just way too dramatic for me already. But they gotta get it up, right? Because imagine being a conservative and you're watching this and you're like, oh! You're getting like a raging You're like getting a raging semi here.
...the country in which we now live. Tonight, candidates seeking the Republican nomination converge in California to chart a new path to the grand old party. Now is the time for choosing.
Here's where I'm gonna judge the character, the charisma. I'm not gonna play devil's advocate. That's not what I'm about. But I may talk about things as if I'm trying to like understand what they're reasoning. So I just want to put that out there.
Welcome to the second Republican debate of the 2024 primary, live from the Ronald Reagan
Let's
Presidential
go!
in Simi Valley, California. We're inside the spectacular Air Force One Pavilion, where the state...
Actually, that's pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie. The location and having that plane there and stuff, and like the way the stage is shut up. It's actually... Oh, there's a helicopter right there. What the fuck? Yo! That's actually pretty cool. I'm not gonna knock that. Good stage setup. Good thing.
Stage is set for a showdown. I'm Stuart Varney,
Hi, Melinda.
of Fox Business, and I am thrilled to be sitting alongside my co-moderators, Fox News Channel Dana Perino and Ilya Calderon, Univision.
Good evening. Thank you, Stuart. President Reagan famously described America as a shining city on a hill, and tonight, 7 candidates will make the case they should be the one to lead that city into a brighter tomorrow. But first, they have to convince you, the voter. Please allow me to welcome our...
Okay, I'm trying to do closed captions because I like to read things too, but like it's not allowing it, so I can't do it. All right. All right, Daniel, let's not get too fired up right yet.
Our Spanish-speaking audience. Muy buenas noches a todos. Desde la Biblioteca Presidencial Ronald Reagan, los precandidatos republicanos también buscan su voto para las primarias.
Wickham says, I'll bring some harvest when I visit LA. I don't live in LA right now, but thank you.
Del partido. Bienvenidos.
And good evening. So let's meet the candidates who have qualified and chosen to be on this stage tonight. They are positioned by the order they rank in the polls, with the highest polling candidate in the middle. Standing center stage, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis.
Oh no. Look at the face already. This man has spent his entire lifetime trying to practice smiling. It's just not... If anybody's a lizard in a human suit, it's this man. Out of all of them. No, only this guy. Only this guy is an actual lizard in a human suit.
Flanking the governor, entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy.
Boo!
South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley.
I think out of everybody, he's my least favorite. And it's just these people that are, like, debating right now.
Haley.
It's South Carolina, Senator Tim Scott. And former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie.
The man with two first names.
Vice President Mike Pence. And North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum.
We have questions on a wide variety of issues important to primary voters. Candidates get 1 minute to answer and 30 seconds to respond.
Here we go. Ready, set, fight! I actually, just side note, is it Wickham? Do you pronounce it Wickham Chi? Wickham? Like, please let me know how you pronounce it. But, like, talking about, like, produce and stuff, I actually live in the salad bowl of America. I live in Central Coast, California. I also manage a farmer's market. So, yeah, I'm all about fresh produce, things like that. Buy directly from the farmers, not the grocery stores. Beautiful. Anyway, another topic for another time.
It's
Let's
singled
go.
out. When their time runs out, we'll all hear this. We have a lot of ground to cover, so please keep it civilized.
Let's get going.
Please keep
We
it
are
simple.
in this spacious, sunny place tonight, designed to reflect the very nature and character of Ronald Reagan. It's a place that makes you proud to be an American. Yet to...
'Cause I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. I fucking hate that song. In, like, 6th grade, we had this, like, school thing where, like, all the students had to learn these, like, patriotic songs, and that was one of them. And, it was so dumb. I didn't even want to participate in it. And we practiced these songs, and then we did it as, like, an after-school assembly with, like, parents there and stuff. Like, I don't think I actually ended up going. I think my parents were just like, we don't give a shit. And I'm like, neither do I. How about that? I hated that, though, when our schools made us be patriotic. I remember in, like, junior high, I had a homeroom teacher who was, like, so psychotic about, like, standing up and saying the Pledge of Allegiance, like, every morning. And if you sat down, even if you were sitting down and you're like, hey, I don't want to participate in this, I don't believe in this, like, even if you were being respectful and quiet, she would make a spectacle out of you. And and I do remember telling her, like, hey, I don't want to stand up and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I don't believe in this stuff. I'm just going to sit down and be quiet. She totally made me out to be, like, some crazy fucking, like, well, you're into terrorism then. It's like, you're so, anti-American. It's like, ma'am, I just don't want to stand up and say this fucking, like, bullshit that you make us say every fucking morning to, like, indoctrinate us. Like, get out of my face. I don't know. Have any of you, did any of you go to public school and did they make you say the Pledge of Allegiance every morning? Did that happen to anybody else? I could have cited religious reasons. No, I couldn't. I grew up in Utah and I was Mormon. And they were all about, like, being hand in hand with, like, the government. Daniel says yes, yes. Like, who else was made to say the Pledge of Allegiance, like, every fucking morning? When I got into junior high, especially like after like 9/11, I was like, I'm not going to get into like a discussion about 9/11 now, but like I definitely had some weird opinions like as a kid, and I'm like, I don't want to get into this because like the patriotism after 9/11, somebody pressed the pedal to the metal and like suddenly America was so obsessive about itself, and it's like, I understand, okay, we were attacked by it, and you know, stuff happened, people died, so it's like, okay, I get it, but it was like so patriotic after that happened. I'm just like, I don't even want to do this and participate in it. And at my time, I'm like, I don't even know what's going on really enough to commit to anything. I'm trying to think for things, but I had one teacher who just really singled me out and was like, you need to stand up, you need to put your hand over your heart, and you need to say the goddamn Pledge of Allegiance, because if you don't, you're a fucking part of the terrorism. You used to watch Channel 1 News? Yeah. I think I remember that too. Yeah. Huh. Holy shit. Public school is weird. It's weird and cheap.
Today, our nation is drowning in division and incivility.
Voters say they dread the 2024 election and find politics exhausting. 2 in 3 Americans think the country is on the wrong track, and 3 in 4 say the economy is not in good shape.
Prices are up 18% since 2020. More than half of the U.S. population has little access to childcare. 85% of Americans say their personal finances are a source of stress.
Americans want to believe a leader who says, you can follow me. I've got you. Don't worry. President Biden is trying to do that with Bidenomics.
And yesterday, he joined the picket line.
I'm sorry, but Bidenomics sounds so dumb. It really does. Like, it really fucking sounds dumb.
Where auto workers are demanding more wages and job security. Senator Scott, you recently reacted by praising Ronald Reagan for firing air traffic controllers in the 1980s, saying, you strike, you're fired. Would you fire thousands of striking auto workers today, Senator?
Obviously, the President of the United States cannot fire anybody in the private sector. However, we should look back at the first bill in Congress under Joe Biden. The first bill had $86 billion for the union pensions because they continue to overpromise yet underdeliver. One of the challenges that we have in the current negotiations is that they want 4-day French work weeks, but more money. They want more benefits, working fewer hours. That is simply not going to stand. I said in...
Oh, shut up. Yes, it is. I'm so sorry. Ever since, like, Ford and his bullshit, it's like this whole fucking idea that people need to work fucking every spare minute of their goddamn life. And that's the only way. Honestly, what he just said, a 4-day work week with, like, more pay and extra benefits, that seems pretty fucking reasonable to me. We, as a human race, are starting to move towards a direction where we're starting to value different things. And I think a lot of it comes from the pandemic, because once we all got into positions where we weren't spending our whole lives, like, working, we started discovering things about ourselves. We started discovering, like, hidden potentials and things we could actually do with like, the other spare time in our lives, you know? It's like, you're not only being productive when you work. People on their spare time can be really productive, really beneficial for the rest of humanity, for the community, things like that. Like, people, it's not just like, hey, you got to be working, because if you're not, you're a lazy piece of shit and you're just sitting around, like, shitting on yourself and, like, shitting in your hand and smearing it on the wall. Like, that's not what humanity does with spare time. If people are not having to work all the time, they're going to be able to have room to do amazing things. I don't agree with this whole, like, I think that's honestly fucking reasonable. I think you should be, work. Yeah, have a job. Do your job. Do it well. I think a 4-day work week that you dedicate an entire 4 days top-notch, like, applying your skills to the job, you should be able to be taken care of. It's really not that much. It's not asking that much. I don't understand this sort of idea that the more you work, the cooler you are and the better you are. I remember, like, in my early 20s, like, when me and my friends were getting jobs, it was always this competition of, like, who grinds the hardest. Like, hey, I work 4 jobs and I only sleep 2 hours. And it's like, wow, you're so cool. It's like, are you? Are you cool for doing that? I don't understand that sort of mentality, that sort of societal expectation that you just constantly have to be working, and if you're not, then you're not actually being productive.
The Finance Committee hearing when a widow came before the committee who was promised pensions from the unions, $4,000 a month. Unfortunately, it had been cut to $1,000 a month. We must make sure that we honor the commitments that we make, and one of the ways that we do that, do not overpromise and then underdeliver and leave the taxpayers on the hook. I'll say this, Joe Biden should not be on the picket line. He should be on the southern border working to close our southern border because it is unsafe.
Whoa, how the fuck did we jump from people getting a reasonable amount of, like, benefits and pay for their time they spend at a job to suddenly, magically, for no prompted reason, jumping over to border control? I mean, I guess in a way they're trying to say, oh, the people that are coming across the border are, like, stealing our jobs. That is so far from the truth. Are you fucking kidding me? There's so much I want to say in this direction, but I haven't formulated my thoughts about the whole people coming from Mexico and stealing our job shit. Because I know that's not the reason why Americans are suffering. That is not the sole reason why Americans are suffering jobs that don't pay very well. Okay? Especially coming from a place of, like, Central California where, like, there's a lot of farms and agriculture. I know for a fact that there's a lot of, like, people from Mexico coming up to, like, do harvesting and shit like that. Dude, they're doing slave labor. They're doing, like, you get a penny for every fucking, like, carrot you, like, pull up. It's like, it's so asinine to me to blame the lack of proper job payment and benefits to people coming from the southern border. But it makes sense to the Republican, you know, conservatives, I guess. If you're Joe Schmo sitting at home with your dog Sparky chewing on a hot dog and you're like, hot damn, that southern border problem is why we can't have no good jobs. It's just, there's no thought process to this.
Wide open and insecure, leading to the deaths of 70,000 Americans in the last 12 months because of fentanyl. It is devastating.
No, now we're going on to fentanyl. Okay, I have to continue because I just can't.
County in America is now a border county because fentanyl has devastated Americans in every single state. I will also say 6 million illegal crossings.
You know, I was just watching some news report about some lady, I think it was like a Utah wife that, like, killed her husband with fentanyl. Let's see. Utah wife kills husband. I think she did it with fentanyl. Yeah, so this lady spiked her husband's drink with fentanyl. Where's everybody getting fentanyl? Where's everybody getting that? I don't know where to get that. If I was to step up from my seat right now and go out there and be like, hey, I really want to acquire this, I don't know where the fuck to get it. Where the fuck are people getting this shit? Who are these people fucking knowing that have this? I don't understand this. This is not actually, like, any commentary on what this guy's talking about with that, but this is just kind of a side note. Like, where the fuck are people getting this? How? So we went from we don't have enough benefits and pay for our jobs to southern border to fentanyl. Hey, Mark. Mark says, I've known 2 people who most likely died from fentanyl. Where are they getting it, though? Where do you get it from? And I'm not asking that as in a way to instruct people to get it. I'm just, like, so bewildered. Like, you go out and you ask somebody and they have, like, where did they get it from? Like, what, where? Cartel? I guess. I don't know. The only drug I've ever been able to get in my entire life is weed. I feel like I can get weed pretty easily, but fentanyl? Doesn't make any sense. Weed is medicine. I mean, yes and no. I'm a big giant stoner, but I have strong opinions about weed being good for everybody. I highly believe it's not. And that's coming from a place where, like, I'm pretty much stoned all the time, but I don't believe it's for everybody. Anyways, let's continue with this, because we're getting really sidetracked with this.
Since Joe Biden has taken office, and he eliminated Title 42. The one thing he should do is finish the wall, reinstate Title 42, and get the job done.
Well, I can promise you that we are going to have a lot of questions on the border and immigration. But in the meantime, we do want to talk about the economy and jobs, and especially want to talk about this strike for just a moment more. Mr. Ramaswamy, you've said you really empathize with the strikers. You're standing next to Senator Scott. Do you agree with what he said, or do you think he's wrong?
I agree with some of what he said, for sure. I like the spirit of it. I'll say that I don't have a lot of patience for the union bosses. I think that's where he and I actually have a common view. I do have a lot of sympathy for the workers, however. People are going through real hardship in this country. I've been through hardship growing up. My father stared down layoffs at GE under Jack Welch's tenure at the GE plant in Evendale, Ohio. My mom had to work overtime in nursing homes in Southwest Ohio to make ends meet and pay off our home loan. So I understand that hardship is not a choice, but victimhood is a choice, and we choose to be victorious in the United States of America. You know what, if I was giving advice to those workers, I would say go picket in front of the White House in Washington, D.C. That's really where the protest needs to be.
Okay, but people in other states who are already complaining about not affording anything suddenly, hold on. These people are picketing because they don't have enough money, and now you expect them to travel to the White House to picket there? What?
Disastrous economic policies that have driven up prices, that have driven up interest rates and mortgage rates. At the same time, wages remaining stagnant. What we need is to deliver economic growth in this country. Unlock American energy. Drill, frack, burn coal, embrace nuclear energy. Put people back to work by no longer paying.
Yes, put the children back in the coal mines. Child labor, just like the good old days. All right? If your 10-year-old isn't suffering from a cough from coal, I don't know what the fuck you're doing, but you're not doing it right. Put the kids back. Put the kids back in the fucking factories, all right?
Them more money to stay at home, stabilize the U.S. dollar itself, and rescind a majority of those unconstitutional federal regulations that are hampering our economy. That is how we unleash American exceptionalism. And that's not a Democratic vision or a Republican vision. That is an American vision that we embrace economic growth, and capitalism is still the best system known to man to lift us up from poverty, and we should not apologize for it. That's what it means to be an American.
Together, the CEOs of General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis make 336 times the number of rank and file workers. That's just part of a wider income inequality trend in the country. The richest 1% now controls 1/5 of all income. Vice President Pence, last week you said you side with American workers, but you also support how these companies operate. Which is it?
Well, thank you for the question. I want to thank Univision and Fox Business for assembling such a wonderful forum. Look, I do disagree with something Tim Scott just said. Joe Biden doesn't belong on a picket line. He belongs on the unemployment line. I mean, look, I'm from the second leading manufacturing state in the country per capita. I was governor of the state of Indiana. We brought 12,000 factories back to America during our administration. I know something about manufacturing. And I got to tell you, while the union bosses are talking about class warfare and talking about disparity in wages, I have to tell you, I really believe what's driving that is Bidenomics has failed. Wages are not keeping up with...
Bidenomics is not the sole cause of why these people are suffering. You flat white-haired bitch. I don't know.
Inflation. Auto workers and all American workers are feeling it, and families are struggling in this economy. And Joe Biden's Green New Deal agenda is good for Beijing and bad for Detroit. We ought to repeal the Green New Deal, get rid of the mandates and subsidies that are driving American gasoline, automotive manufacturing.
You know, a lot of these responses to these sorts of things, it's like, hey, what do you think about this? Like that, there's that prompt. And then it's like all the responses so far from any person, from all of the three people, Pence, Smommy, the other guy, it's just like, they just kind of state a medley of things. Just like a random little bowl of eclectic stuff. And every part of that eclectic bowl, I'm just like, I have so much more questions and I want to have so much more discussion on one particular piece. But then we're on to the next thing. Politics is so nauseating. This is so, I don't know, exhausting already.
Into the graveyard. And beyond that also, as President of the United States, I'll be standing with workers all across America, and I'll be standing for the right to work of every American, to join a union or not.
I don't want a right to work. I want a right to live without having to work. And I don't mean that in a sense as in I don't want to work at all or do anything and just sit on my ass. I mean, quite literally, I don't want to have to depend on working to live. I want to work. I like jobs. I like having a job. I have my job managing a market. I love it. If I wanted to quit it, I could. But I love that. People like to work. They just want to work in a place that they enjoy and that they can actually have a way to live off of. It's just, the system is broken in that sense. People have to work jobs that they don't give a fuck about just to literally live. Otherwise, they're out in the street. It's not about having comforts like coffees and Netflix. It's about hey, either I work or I'm literally sleeping in the gutter. Okay, I've lived out of my car before. I've been down there where you can't afford a place to live.
Join a union as they decide.
Senator Scott, you were mentioned. Will you care to respond?
There's no doubt that Joe Biden needs to be fired. That's why I'm running for president. I look forward to being the next president of the United States. I will also say, I know America can do for anyone what she's done for me. It's why we're focusing on restoring hope, creating opportunities, and protecting the America we all love. Growing up in a single-parent household, I wondered if the American dream would work for a kid in the inner city. I've got good news for every single child, whether you're in the inner cities of Chicago or the rural parts of Iowa. America and the dream, it is alive, it is well, and it is healthy. God bless these United States of America.
Governor Haley, you raise your hand.
I think we need to look at exactly what happened. Biden showed up on that picket line, but why are those workers?
This feels so infantile. Like, this literally is like a debate to determine like who's next in line for like ruling America, but yet this seems so infantile. This seems like somebody running for class president like in fucking like junior high school. Like, I guess I expected more getting into politics. I'm like, what's everybody talking about? And now that I'm like actually getting into politics, I expected people to be talking about things that would go over my head. But then I listen to what they're saying and I'm like, this is like drawn out and crayon, man. Like, I really expected more. I expected to have to like take a lot of minute to like think about things and like really go through stuff in my head and reflect. But like, it's just so surface level. It's infantile. It's just so childish. I don't know.
Workers actually there. It's because of all of the spending that he has pushed through in the economy that's raised the inflation. So when you look at the fact that we are paying higher gas prices, higher grocery prices, $7,000 more a year for families, what we need to do is I came out with an economic plan, eliminate the gas and diesel tax so that they have more money in their pocket. Let's focus on going after middle America and cutting taxes for middle America and collapsing those brackets. Let's get rid of unfair distortions like the state and local tax that they give to wealthy people in blue states and paid by red states. And let's make sure we make the small business taxes permanent. They only made those temporary. They made the corporate taxes permanent. Let's focus on what it takes to get more cash in the pockets of workers. That's when we'll be able to deal with strikes like this, not sitting on a picket line like Joe Biden is.
Thank you, Governor Haley. We have other questions to get to about economy. Allow me to.
I just have to. I'm sorry.
Allow me to.
I'm sorry. I have to jump in because we're missing the point, and every other network is missing the point. The reason why people are striking in Detroit is because Joe Biden's interference with capital markets and with free markets. The subsidies, we're subsidizing the automakers and we're subsidizing the cars and a particular kind of car, not every car. We're subsidizing electric vehicles. And when you decide that we're going to take all of your taxpayer monies, take $1 billion, subsidize a certain type of vehicle, and the batteries come from China. China controls 85% of the rare earth minerals. They're called rare earth because they're measured in parts per million. China is moving 100,000 pounds of earth in Indonesia, in Africa. They're literally destroying the planet so that they can make a battery that's in a car subsidized here. That's why they're striking, because they need 2/3 less workers to build an electric car. Joe Biden, this strike is at Joe Biden's feet.
Hi, Cassie.
But allow me to follow question to Governor Christie. The government will shut down if Congress does not reach a deal by the end of this week. Vice President Pence warns that politics of, quote, Trump's populist protégés, like Mr. Ramaswamy, are a road to ruin for the GOP. If the government shuts down, should voters blame populist Republicans?
Voters should blame everybody who's in Washington, D.C. They get sent down there to do the job, and they've been failing at doing the job for a very long time. And let's be honest.
I'm sorry. I need to backtrack a little bit to listen. I did not listen to that correctly. Let me backtrack a little bit.
In Africa, they're literally destroying the planet so that they can make a battery that's in a car subsidized here. That's why they're striking, because they need 2/3 less workers to build an electric car. Joe Biden, this strike is at Joe Biden's feet.
We're going to keep the topic of economy, but allow me to follow question to Governor Christie. The government will shut down if Congress does not reach a deal by the end of this week. Vice President Pence warns that politics of, quote, Trump's populist protégés, like Mr. Ramaswamy, are a road to ruin for the GOP.
Okay.
If the government shuts down, should voters blame populist Republicans?
Voters should blame everybody who's in Washington, D.C. They get sent down there to do the job, and they've been failing at doing the job for a very long time. And let's be honest about this with the voters. You know, during the Trump administration, they added $7 trillion in national debt. And now the Biden administration has put another $5 trillion on and counting. They have failed, and they're in the spot they're in now because none of them are willing to tell the truth. None of them are willing to take on the difficult issues. They just want to keep kicking the can down the road. And the inflation that Nikki spoke about is absolutely right, and it's caused by government spending. And that's why people all across this country are suffering tonight. And yet we don't get any answers because Joe Biden hides in his basement and won't answer as to why he's raising the debt the way he's done. And Donald Trump hides behind the walls of his golf clubs and won't show up here to answer questions like all the rest of us are up here to answer. He put $7 trillion on the debt. He should be in this room to answer those questions for the people you talk about who are suffering.
I mean, I don't like him, but I can agree that we're all kind of done with the Biden versus Trump thing. Like, to fuck with both of them. And that's the only thing I agree on, is just to fuck with both of them. Let's do something else. That's something else that he has in mind, I don't really care for.
And if the government closes, it's the blame, it is to the blame of everyone in Washington, D.C., who has failed to do their job and just plays to the grandstand.
The next question is for
Here's how we get it done in Washington. We must find a way.
Can we please respect the time?
We can get it done.
Governor DeSantis, you haven't spoken. Please.
The people in Washington are shutting down the American dream with their reckless behavior. They borrowed, they printed, they spent, and now you're paying more for everything. They are the reason for that. They have shut down our national sovereignty by allowing our border to be wide open. So please spare me the crocodile tears for these people. They need to change what's going on. And where's Joe Biden? He's completely missing in action from leadership. And you know who else is missing in action? Donald Trump is missing in action. He should be on this stage tonight. He owes it to you to defend his record where they added 7.
I mean, he's not wrong about that. Trump refuses to participate in all this shit, yet he's really determined to run.
$0.8 trillion to the debt. That set the stage for the inflation that we have now. I can tell you this, as governor of Florida, we cut taxes, we ran surpluses, we've paid down over 25% of our state debt, and I vetoed wasteful spending when it came to my desk. And as your president, when they send me a bloating spending bill that's going to cause your prices to go up, I'm going to take out this veto pen and I'm going to send it right back to them.
Ilya, you mentioned me in the question. I just want to address
a question that is on the minds of a lot of moms and dads and Americans, and I know that you've been thinking about it because childcare costs, they are up. They're topping $10,000 per month. Some families are spending up to half of their income on childcare, and they're having to decide, is it worth it for me to work, or does it not make sense for me financially? In 3 days, the billions of dollars in pandemic-era funding is going to end, and 70,000 daycares could close. So you had an effort to broaden eligibility for child care assistance. That fell apart last year. And for the moms and dads out there who are worried, what can you tell them if you weren't able to get it through the Congress? How could you do it as president?
Certainly one of the things I did as a member of Congress was to make sure that we protected the Head Start programs around the country, giving people the opportunity to pick and choose the place that they send their children. The challenges that we see today under the Biden administration is that the cost for daycare has gone over $15,000 per child. In the Build Back Broker plan, he called it a Build Back Better plan, it was going up to $29,000. The way we fix that problem is to make sure that we actually cut taxes and give more Americans their money back. When I helped write the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, we actually...
Tax cuts for who? Tax cuts for the higher class or the poor class?
Lowered a single mother's taxes by 70% on the federal level. For dual income households by 60%. Then we went a step further. We doubled the child tax credit and made it refundable. By doing that, more parents had more resources to make the decisions how to take care of their family. The one thing we should do is let the American people keep their money. When that happens, the greatest opportunities rise from the ashes.
Okay, I'm going to give you 15 seconds. Go ahead, and then we're going to the border.
Ilya mischaracterized a part of my view. I think this artificial division is unhelpful in our party. The real divide is not between the Republicans on this stage. And in the Reagan Library, I want to say these are good people on this stage. The real divide is between the majority of us in this country who love the United States of America and share our founding ideals. Free speech, meritocracy, the idea you get ahead in this country not on the color of your skin, but on the content of your character, and the fringe minority in the Democrat Party that has a chokehold over that party. That's the real divide. So this populist versus classical debate is artificial. We need to unite this party.
Can I speak about the administration?
We are going to talk about immigration and the border and
child care. We have
I think we're going to go on. You have to. We have all these questions. We're going to get to you. We're going to come back to you. There's a lot of time.
You asked about child care. Nobody answered the question. In North Dakota, we knew that the cliff was coming. We knew that there was going to be millions of people without it. And so guess what? We planned.
Okay.
And when we passed legislation because child care.
We will get you some questions, but you're going to have to let us move on. We are going to the border next.
Child care is workforce infrastructure.
In 1984, President Ronald Reagan said the following.
The idea of amnesty for those who have put down roots and who have lived here, even though sometime back they may have entered illegally.
2 years later, President Reagan granted amnesty to nearly 3 million immigrants, something no Democrat or Republican president has done since. Governor Christie, as governor of a non-border state in 2010, you supported a path to citizenship. But when you ran for president in 2016, you flipped, saying immigrants should be tracked like FedEx packages. Where do you stand now on a path to citizenship for 11
immigrants should be tracked like FedEx packages?
million of undocumented immigrants?
The problem is that since no one has done anything since we first had this discussion 13 years ago, we're not in a position to be able to do any of that anymore. What we have to do now is first treat this like the law enforcement problem it is. Our laws are being broken every day at the southern border, every day. And Joe Biden and his crew is doing nothing about enforcing that law. They are letting it go. And by the way, they announced during the presidential race they were going to let it go. And we need to have a president who acts like I did as governor. Enforce the law, first and foremost. And that means what I'll do on day one is sign an executive order to send the National Guard to partner with Customs and Border Patrol to make sure that we stop the flow of fentanyl over the border, but also to make sure that we send a much different message. We want you here in this country to fill the 6 million vacant jobs we have, but only if you come here to follow the law and only if you come here legally. If you come here illegally, we will apprehend you and we will...
The whole process for those people south of the border, in order to get here to our country, is so agonizing. Like, you're talking about, you do everything that you're supposed to do. You fill out all the forms, A, B, C, 1, 2, 3. You do everything you're supposed to do. And you're stuck in waiting. And then it's pretty much just like a roulette. Maybe you'll win the lottery. And you'll be able to get through. They make it sound like people are completely avoiding going through the process at all. They are. It's not enough. Meanwhile, their lives are on the line. There's such turmoil and despair going on their end in their personal life's experience with how they're trying to thrive in Mexico. They go through the processes of trying to come up to here legally, and it's not enough. Like, it's like, hey, maybe in 30 years you'll get approved. Like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? They act like it's so black and white. They act like you just fill out the form and then you come in and it's over. It's not. A lot of people just don't understand sort of like bureaucratic processes. When you fill out forms, you gotta get it stamped. You gotta wait for this. You gotta wait for that. You gotta stand in line A, and get this form filled out, and then at line A you have to realize you got to get this form filled out over there, it's too late by the time things actually go through. Mark says lots of people who enter without papers from Central and South America are poor people with children who are running from cartel problems this nation had a hand in creating. That's the other, like, deeper level. There's so many cartel problems and government problems down in Mexico. And I'm not just saying that as in, like, you're living in carnage if you go down to Mexico. Like, there's just, like, debris everywhere, and, like, people are being slain on the streets. It's, like, it's very organized and very kempt. But the process of coming to America isn't so black and white. You don't just fill out a form, get a stamp, and you're here. Like, it's a long bureaucratic process, and it doesn't happen right away. And that doesn't work in real life, because you're like, hey, I have kids, and there's a couple of guys that are threatening to fucking kill us if we don't do A, B, and C, and our only choice for safety is running to America. Meanwhile, you're crossing a river. There's barbed wire, like, in the river. Like, you're doing anything and everything because you're at your last limit. You're at your last moment in time for your family to in order to. I'm tripping up on my words. Okay. It's a lot of pressure when you're trying to legally go through the process of coming here to America. It's not going fast enough, and meanwhile your life is on the line, and your children's lives are on the line. So you think, fuck it, I gotta fucking, like, just cross over there as fast as I can, and that's your only salvation at the moment in time. That's your only choice. Anyways, I'm gonna grab a drink. We're gonna continue this really interesting discussion. Let me know what you think in the chat. Okay, my friends. This is intense. Jesus Christ, we're only like 22 minutes through this. Let's go. This is why I planned this for just
across the
tonight.
border from which you came. And the fact is that until we set a law and order agenda in this country, not only now but in the future, we won't be able to continue this. And I'll tell you this. Donald Trump failed on this as well. He said he was going to build.
I really love the shut the fuck up bell. Ding ding. Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. That is the shut the fuck up bell.
Wall across the whole border. He built 52 miles of wall and said Mexico would pay for it. Guess what? I think if Mexico knew that he was only going to build 52 miles, they might have paid for the 52 miles.
Thank you, Governor.
All right, Governor Haley. Most illegal immigrants are coming from countries south of the border. You've seen the Fox News drone. It's captured this steady stream of people coming into the country on a daily basis. In fact, I believe we have a live picture of it tonight. That is happening right now, live. In the last decade, the U.S. has spent nearly $55 billion to address the root causes of migration. But crime, poverty, and corruption, they persist, and the number of migrants is only growing. Are we wasting our money?
Well, what happens is when Joe Biden waved the green flag, it told everybody to come. And now we've seen 6 million people cross the border. We've had more fentanyl that have killed Americans in the Iraq, Vietnam, or Afghanistan wars combined. We need to make sure that we are a country of laws. The second we stop being a country of laws, we give up everything this country was founded on. So we have to secure the border. The way we do that is, first of all, defund sanctuary cities. You see what's happening in Philadelphia right now. It's got to stop. We need to make sure we put 25,000 more Border Patrol and ICE agents on the ground and let them do their job. I spent 400 miles down that border, and I'm telling you, Border Patrol agents aren't allowed to do their job. Let's go back to remain in Mexico policy. Instead of catch and release, let's go to catch and deport.
What about what about the aid that federal taxpayers are paying to deal with the root causes?
Catch and release? Yo, these are people. They're acting like this is an invasive species of animal. Like, are you fucking kidding me? These are people with real problems, with real reasons as to why they're trying to, like, flee to here. I don't like this conversation because it makes me feel uncomfortable how dehumanizing it is.
It's not working?
The only aid that we should be spending right now is to secure the border, the southern border, the northern border, period.
You would cut off aid
The northern border? What the fuck are Canadians doing?
Keep Americans safe, and right now Americans are not safe. Only when we fix the immigration system, only when we get the border secure, should we ever look at putting any more money into this. Our money should be about keeping Americans safe. We're not doing that. Joe Biden's not doing that. And you mentioned Congress and shutting down government. I'll make it clear. We have to change the budget process in 4 years, in 40 years. Congress has only delivered a budget on time 4 times in 40 years. If they don't keep the government open, they should not get paid. No pay, no budget. That's the way we should.
Governor DeSantis, we have a question for you. Governor DeSantis, China invested $12 billion.
So what do you think, Mark? Do you think, like, this is, like, a direction to become, like, xenophobic in a way? Like, I don't get it because, like, we're the melting pot.
In Latin America just last year. They signed strategic partnerships with 7 countries, including Mexico. And China's military ties to the region now include arms sales and training exercises. Are you comfortable with China deepening ties with our southern neighbors?
Of course not. And the reason why we're in this mess is because elites in D.C. for far too long have chosen surrender over strength when it comes to the CCP. Some people in our country got rich, our industrial base got hollowed out, and they have been able to build the second most powerful military in the entire world. We need a totally new approach to China. We are going to have real hard power in the Indo-Pacific, like Reagan, to deter their ambitions. We're going to have economic independence from China, where we're decoupling our economy, and we are going to go out.
Mark says the GOP has been the party of xenophobia since the birth of Fox News and the Tea Party fake movement, if not before this. Yeah, because that's the kind of vibe I'm getting here.
After the cultural power they have in this country. As governor of Florida, I banned the CCP from buying land in our state. We should do that all across these United States. We shouldn't have them in our universities. We shouldn't have Confucius Institutes. So you see a country in decline, our power's in decline. China's going to surpass us this decade, and if they do that, that's going to affect every single American household. As your president, I am not going to let that happen. I'm going to reverse this country's decline. We are going to choose strength, not surrender when it comes to the CCP.
America is not a country in decline. Under Joe Biden, we are a country in retreat.
You propose, quote, universal deportation for all undocumented immigrants and their children, even if the children are are citizens of the United States, under what legal premise would you expel U.S. citizens?
So the first thing I want to say is I agree with everything. The Republicans on the stage are on the right side of this issue. Militarize the southern border, stop funding sanctuary cities, and end foreign aid to Mexico and Central America to end the incentives to come across. But I do go a step further. You're right about that, Ilya. I favor end
the incentives. The incentive is life. Either I cross the border and go to America or I die. What kind of fucking manipulation of incentives can these people do?
Birthright citizenship for the kids of illegal immigrants in this country. Now, the left will howl about the Constitution and the 14th Amendment. The difference between me and them is I've actually read the 14th Amendment. What it says is that all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the laws and jurisdiction thereof are citizens. So nobody believes that the kid of a Mexican diplomat in this country enjoys birthright citizenship. Not a judge or legal scholar in this country will disagree with me on that. Well, if the kid of a Mexican diplomat doesn't enjoy birthright citizenship, then neither does the kid of an illegal migrant who broke the law to come here. And as the father of two sons, it is hard for me to look them in the eye and say, you have to follow the law when our own government fails to follow its own laws. That's how we really go the distance and solve this problem and restore the rule of law in the United States of America, because that is part of what it even means to be an American.
Senator Scott, you oppose ending birthright citizenship. What does Mr. Ramaswamy have wrong on that issue?
Yeah, there's no doubt the fact that when you think of the Constitution and the 14th Amendment, it was certainly written as it relates to slavery, not as it relates to illegal immigration. It's been applied to illegal immigration. So the challenge that we face is, in fact, one that has to do with whether or not the people that come here are under the jurisdiction of our laws. And frankly, if you come here illegally, you are not. Now, surviving a Supreme Court argument is something I can't tell you. But from a perspective of the Constitution, I think it's simple that clearly it was designed for slavery and not for illegal immigration. I'll go one step further, though. When we have a conversation about the things that are happening on this stage, we think about the fact that Vivek just said we were all good people, and I appreciate that, because last debate, he said we were all bought and paid for. And I thought about that for a little while and said, you know, I can't imagine how you could say that knowing that you were just in business with the Chinese Communist Party and the same people that funded Hunter Biden millions of dollars was a partner of yours as well. It's not nonsense.
So look, here's what I want to respond. These are
Ooh,
who are tainted
saucy.
by a broken system, and it's not the fault of anybody who's involved.
Some of us are tainted.
Excuse me, bitch. Ramaswamy is a tech bro douchebag. He really is, though. He's such a douchebag. Out of all of these candidates, if I was to say who I dislike the most, it's him. It's totally Ramaswamy, and it's because of his attitude. He's so fucking pretentious. It's like he's one of those people where he just got the constant smell of shit under his nose. You know, he's just constantly flaring his nostrils at everybody else. I just fucking can't stand him.
You said about
if I may finish,
you can't be on both sides.
Gentlemen, you'll have your turn.
One of the challenges we should have
Please focus on the issues that matter. We know we did business in China. Everybody knows that.
If I may address.
Shut up.
Joe Biden accountable. That's what we need to
Shut
I actually agree with Ron DeSantis.
Speaking at the same time, no one can understand
Exactly.
your message.
So if I may, I agree with Ron DeSantis on China. When every other CEO expanded into the Chinese market, you know what I did with my first company? We opened a subsidiary in China. But you know what I did that was different than every other company? We got the hell out of there. And when I started my next company, Strive, that's years ago.
2023.
Right when I started my next company, Strive, to compete against BlackRock, to compete against BlackRock, I made a commitment that we would never do business in China. And I will say something.
I think you have more than time to explain your point.
Well, if I was interrupted by a lot of people here, and I want to be respectful because I believe these are good people, but I do not believe in these. We're sitting here in the Reagan Library.
Yes, I wish you
in
would
the honor of Ronald Reagan's library, if I may. From one admirer of Ronald Reagan to another. From one admirer of Reagan to another, we cannot sit here and violate Reagan's 11th commandment.
This isn't productive.
I want to hear about that.
Let's have a policy debate.
What's going on?
Let us have a policy debate.
Let's have about their record.
Let's have a policy debate.
My brain is gonna explode!
Declare independence from China,
Thank you very
and I will
much.
see that through.
Vice President Pence, in 2017, the Trump-Pence administration canceled DACA, which put the legal status of 600,000 Dreamers in the hands of the courts. Dreamers work and they pay taxes. As president, if the Supreme Court ends DACA, would you work with Congress to reach a permanent solution for Dreamers?
Well, first, let me say I'm glad Vivek pulled out of his business deal in 2018 in China. That must have been about the time you decided to start voting in presidential elections. So nice to have you participating in elections. So let me speak to this issue. Number one, I negotiated the Remain in Mexico policy with the Mexican government. We used economic power to bring the Mexican government to the table. We built hundreds of miles of border wall. And despite what's said here today, we reduced illegal immigration and asylum abuse by 90%. And as President of the United States, I can do it again. And the truth is we need to fix a broken immigration system, and I'll do that as well. But first and foremost, a nation without borders is not a nation. And we have to secure the southern border of the United States of America. I know.
The whole fucking point of America was several fucking different nations, nationalities, and countries coming together to find freedom from their original stasis. How can we go from supporting the melting pot to, hey, we gotta be us and us only? Who the fuck is us? America's nothing but founded from different people of the fucking different nationalities and shit.
How to do it, and we will do it again. Let me say one other thing about China. Let me say one other thing about China.
Would you negotiate with Congress to give a solution to the problem that Dreamers have right now? They are on a limbo.
Well, let me tell you, I served in Congress for 12 years, although it seemed longer. But you know, something I've done different than everybody on this stage is I've actually secured reform in Congress. You know, Ron, you talk a really good game about cutting spending, but you've increased spending in Florida by 30%. When I was a member of Congress in 2006, right after Hurricane Katrina, Dana, you remember it, our ground, I led House conservatives. We cut $100 billion out of the federal budget. It can be done, but as I said in the last debate, I'll say again, this is no time for on-the-job training. I'm going to be ready on day one to get Congress to step up, secure the southern border of the United States, build a military fitted to our times, and we're going to get spending in Washington, D.C. under control once and for all.
On the other side of this break, and I propose to go to a break. How will these candidates make America safer as rising crime plagues our cities? Debate night continues in moments.
I'm Patriotic Kenny.
And hi, I'm Amanda.
Oh no.
My scooter broke down. I went into a depression.
How you feel
Kenny's scooter broke down.
about that?
Pretty sad.
And I posted it to show that Kenny's not always happy. Within 24 hours, people had donated over $5,000.
Oh, you're kidding.
We'd set up the Patriotic Kenny Foundation to give mobility scooters to veterans.
It has changed my life tremendously.
None of this would have happened without TikTok.
That's not bad.
Dumb money is.
I'm not against giving scooters to veterans. I just, that's fine. Whatever. Go you. Woot woot.
Certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes.
I'm in.
A triumphant fist in the air for the little guys.
How much did we make today?
$5 million.
How much did we lose today?
$1 billion. Dumb.
To the Reagan Library for the second Republican presidential debate. I do want to just remind everyone, there's 1 minute for questions, 3 seconds for a follow-up, and the more you mention each other, that means the fewer questions you're going to get. Okay, so we want to talk about crime. This has been a horrendous problem in our country. Fox News and others have been covering it.
Here we go,
Governor
crime.
Christie Crime in major cities is striking fear into the hearts of Americans. Just last night, looters took over the streets of Philadelphia. You said in the last debate that you would use U.S. attorneys to prosecute crimes local prosecutors won't. But they are stretched as well, and they could not handle all of the lawlessness, the shoplifting, all the carjackings, the armed robberies. They're all surging. Progressive prosecutors were elected by their constituents, and they can't be fired by a president. So what would you do to end the revolving door of criminality?
Well, look, Dana, I'm the only one on this stage who's done it. For 7 years, I ran the 5th largest office in this country. At the U.S. Attorney's Office in New Jersey, and we set records for the number of prosecutions that we brought that still have not been broken. And the reason was that we went after the crime that was affecting people's lives. And as president, I will appoint an attorney general and instruct that attorney general that you are to put all the resources that are necessary to bring our cities back under control. The fact is, they will be stretched. There's no doubt about that, but that's what they take the job for, because they love the idea of enforcing the law. We've got to bring law and order back to this country, and not just in our cities, but we need law and order back everywhere. We need law and order back in our suburbs. People are threatened there. We need it in our rural areas. People feel threatened there. And we need it in Washington, D.C. also. And Donald Trump should be here to answer for that, but he's not. And I want to look at that camera right now and tell you, Donald, I know you're watching. You can't help yourself. I know you're watching. Okay? And you're not here tonight. Not because of polls and not because of your indictments. You're not here tonight because you're afraid of being on the stage and defending your record. You're ducking these things.
I mean,
you keep doing that, no one up here is going to call you Donald.
Okay, here's the thing. I get that Trump's not here. Trump's still trying to run. Trump's not participating in this on purpose. Okay? So I get the whole thing about calling Trump out. But sometimes I think these candidates are going to jump to that just to avoid really explaining their position on things. Do you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, you're right. Trump's not here. He's not doing anything. That's fucked up. Like, hey, dude, come and show up for the show. But how long can you use that as an excuse for not explaining your own position? Does that make sense? Daniel Miller says, I'm too triggered. Need to not view this. Goodbye. Have a weekend. Hey, thank you so much for coming. I understand if this is triggering. So, I mean, that's sad because, you know, I would love it if you could stay here. But if this is, you know, really upsetting to the point where, like, you can't handle it, I think it's a good idea to take some time and take care of yourself. I'm a huge proponent of, like, taking care of yourself. You know, I do that myself because I am a trans person and there's so much anti-trans garbage out there that dehumanizes me and makes me feel like I'm a piece of garbage. So I have to literally just like walk away and be like, hey, I can't actually look at this stuff. So I totally understand. So I hope you come back. I hope you come back to other live streams, Daniel. I hope you come back. I understand if you want to take a break. I really do hope you come back though. So peace and love to you, and I hope you feel better. Anyways, continuing.
Donald Trump anymore. We're going to call you Donald Duck.
All right. I want to ask Governor DeSantis, you fired a couple of prosecutors in your state, but as as president, you would not have the ability to do that. How do you think about dealing with the root causes of crime, especially this revolving door of the criminals? They just get out and come back and commit another crime.
Well, the crime in these cities is one of the strongest signs of the decaying of America. We can't be successful as a country if people aren't even safe to live in places like Los Angeles and San Francisco. Just being in Southern California over the last couple days, my wife and I have met 3 people who have been mugged on the street, and that would have never happened 10 or 20 years ago. In Florida,
bullshit.
We back the blue. We support the men and women of law enforcement. They are keeping us safe. We have a 50-year low in the crime rate. And yes, when I had 2 progressive prosecutors that weren't following the law in Florida, I removed them from their posts, and the people of Florida are safer as a result of it. As president, I will use the Justice Department to bring civil rights cases against all of those left-wing Soros-funded prosecutors. We're not going to let them get away with it anymore. We want to reverse this country's decline. We need to choose law and order over rioting and disorder.
On a related subject, Governor Haley, there's a nationwide policing shortage.
Ron DeSantis is so robotic. Like, he's so robotic, right? It's so weird. It's almost like he doesn't actually have human emotion.
Retirements are up, recruitment is in the tank, morale is at a record low. 3 years ago, you signed a pledge to support law enforcement. Now, pledges are a nice idea, but what's your actual plan to get more police on our streets?
Well, and I actually did it in South Carolina, too. You know, what we knew in South Carolina was you take care of those who take care of you. We have to start taking care of law enforcement, but it's not just taking care of them with words. It's making sure that you also follow through on what they do. Right now, we have a lot of stolen guns on the street. Well, these law enforcement officers, they arrest these people, and then they go and they're let out the very next day. So law enforcement feels like no one has their back.
So Laura says, all the arguing and talking over one another just shows me another reason I'm glad I'm not a Republican. They can't even agree to let one another talk. You know, that's true in this particular instance, in the instance of this actual debate. One thing I will say when it comes to the left side, the left side is possibly one of the most argumentative sides of things, and I really mean that. I feel like there's more unity with the right than there is the left, and I think it's a lot to do with the left not feeling powerful or not feeling like they're accomplishing anything. So if they can't attack the main source of power, then they're going to attack each other for not doing well enough. I hope that makes sense. Does that make sense? I'm gonna grab another drink. Hold on. I mean, I really do genuinely, as much as I don't like right side rhetoric, they definitely seem, and I want to make an emphasis on the word seem, more unified than the left. All right.
We have to start prosecuting according to the law. We have to make sure we have the backs of law enforcement, and we have to make sure that we're a country of law and order. But I want to go back to China because I don't think we spent enough time on that. Right now, we have to look at what government's doing to hurt us against China, too. You have a company, U.S. Antibiotics, that produces amoxicillin, the #1 antibiotic that we need. And right now, there is a company in Bristol, Tennessee, that produces that, yet our federal government only gets it from China. We need to be focusing on companies that produce in America and supporting those companies that produce in America, not companies that are helping China.
Governor, we will be talking foreign policy later. Delia?
Yes, thank you, Stuart. We're going to stay in the topic of crime because it affects.
I mean, foreign policy doesn't really work in the long run as far as politics go, because ultimately capitalism is want to use like foreign sources to produce things.
All of us. Governor Burgum, for the first time ever, a Univision poll found that mass shootings and gun safety are one of the most important issues for Latino voters. Mental health concerns are not unique to the United States, but gun violence is. What is your specific plan to curb gun violence?
Well, first we need to understand is I think that the liberal left seems to be just completely bent on prosecuting law-abiding citizens that are gun owners, because every solution they have to this is take away the Second Amendment rights of Americans, and somehow that's going to solve the problem. But all these cities that we're talking about that you showed the videos of tonight, they have some of the strictest gun laws in the country. So we know that that's not what's working. But what we have to do is get back to the core issues about the family. We have to get back to behavioral health and mental health. We've got to get back to actually enforcing the laws these people talked about, and like we've done in North Dakota, where we've got the goal and we're on the track to being the most military-friendly state in the nation. We've got the most military and the most support of what we're doing in terms of law enforcement, because the morale is down because we've been defunding the police, because they've been attacked in the press. The police have become the bad guys when they're the one. There's all these jobs available in America. Why would you be a policeman if people don't even respect them? Every time I see a policeman, the first thing I say is thank you, and so does everybody else in my family and most of the people in our state, because they know we have to respect the people that are out there defending us every single day.
Can I answer the question on mass shooting?
Mr. Ramaswamy, according to Customs and Border Protection, about 90% of fentanyl is seized at official border crossings, and 57% of the smugglers are U.S. citizens. How would you stop fentanyl brought into the country, mostly by U.S. citizens, through ports of entry?
There's two sides to this, and we have to be very honest about it. One is we do have to seal that southern border. Building the wall is not enough. They're building cartel-financed tunnels underneath that wall, semi-trucks.
Ah! Are you serious? Not only is there this conceptualization of like there's a wall built between America and Mexico, but now we're talking about underground tunnels that the cartel are using. I just, as far as I'm understanding, the wall actually isn't even established, right? Because somebody tried to contract that project and they tried to build like a portion of the wall and it didn't really stand up. So like, am I missing something? Am I missing some information here? Or is the idea of there already being a wall established and cartel having secret tunnels beneath it, is that made up? Because my spidey sense is tingling and it's telling me this is bullshit. Am I wrong? Am I wrong? I am open to being wrong. What the fuck is going on here? What the hell is happening? Can somebody explain that to me, please? Because I'm lost on that concept of like cartel having like underground tunnels under these walls that are supposedly already established. Is there any wall between America and Mexico right now? Because as far as I understand, no. Maybe a little bit, but it's like flawed and it's crumbling and it doesn't actually stand up to basic weather. let's back up.
Acts of law enforcement, and we have to make sure that we're a country of law and order. But I want to go back to China because I don't think we spent enough time on that. Right now, we have to look at what government's doing to hurt us against China, too. You have a company, U.S. Antibiotics, that produces amoxicillin, the #1 antibiotic that we need. And right now, there is a company in Bristol, Tennessee, that produces that, yet our federal government only gets it from China. We need to be focusing on companies that produce in America and supporting those companies that produce in America, not companies that are helping China.
Governor, we will be talking foreign policy later. Delia?
Yes, thank you, Stuart. We're going to stay in the topic of crime because it affects all of us. Governor Burgum, for the first time ever, a Univision poll found that mass shootings and gun safety are one of the most important issues for Latino voters. Mental health concerns are not unique to the United States, but gun violence is. What is your specific plan to curb gun violence?
Well, first we need to understand is I think that the liberal left seems to be just completely bent on prosecuting law-abiding citizens that are gun owners, because every solution they have to this is take away the Second Amendment rights of Americans, and somehow that's going to solve the problem. But all these cities that we're talking about that you showed the videos of tonight, they have some of the strictest gun laws in the country.
So I think at this point I kind of backed up too far from what we're actually talking about. So just put a bookmark in and let's continue to what the point is.
We know that that's not what's working. What we have to do is get back to the core issues about the family. We have to get back to behavioral health and mental health. We've got to get back to actually enforcing the laws these people talked about. And like we've done in North Dakota, where we've got the goal and we're on the track to being the most military-friendly state in the nation. We've got the most military and the most support of what we're doing in terms of law enforcement, because the morale is down because we've been defunding the police, because they've been attacked in the press. The police have become the bad guys when they're the one. There's all these jobs available in America. Why would you be a policeman if people don't even respect them? Every time I see a policeman, the first thing I say is thank you. And so does everybody else in my family and most of the people in our state, because they know we have to respect the people that are out there defending us every single day.
Can I answer the question on mass shooting?
Mr. Ramaswamy, according to Customs and
Okay, here's where I meant to backtrack to. Okay, so pay attention now.
Border Protection, about 90% of fentanyl is seized at official border crossings, and 57% of the smugglers are U.S. citizens. How would you stop fentanyl brought into the country, mostly by U.S. citizens, through
Here's what he's saying about tunnels.
ports of entry?
There's two sides to this, and we have to be very honest about it. One is we do have to seal that southern border. Building the wall is not enough. They're building cartel-financed tunnels underneath that wall. Semi-trucks can drive through them.
Who is building tunnels for cartels to drive through? Big enough for semi-trucks. Are you serious? What's going on about tunnels here?
Can I answer the question on mass shooting?
Mr. Ramaswamy, according to Customs and Border Protection, about 90% of fentanyl is seized at official border crossings, and 57% of the smugglers are U.S. citizens. How would you stop fentanyl brought into the country, mostly by U.S. citizens, through ports of entry?
There's two sides to this, and we have to be very honest about it. One is we do have to seal that southern border. Building the wall is not enough. They're building cartel-financed tunnels underneath that wall.
Who's building tunnels? Who is building tunnels?
Trucks can drive through them. We have to use our own military to seal the Swiss cheese of a southern border, but we also have to be honest. There's a demand-side problem in this country, too, a mental health epidemic. I met family in Iowa, two parents, Kathy and Derek. They lost their son, Sebastian, 17 years old. He bought Percocet on Snapchat, and then he died. Why did he die? Because it was laced with fentanyl. That is closer to bioterrorism, not a drug overdose. That is poisoning. So it is our job to make sure that never happens. But it's also our job to make sure that 17-year-olds don't turn to Percocet via Snapchat. We have to bring back mental health care in this country, not with pump-in pharmaceuticals, but with faith-based approaches that restore purpose and meaning in the next generation of Americans. Many of them are getting it through social media. And this isn't a Republican point or a Democrat point, but if you're 16 years old or under, you should not be using an addictive social media product, period. This is something that we can both agree on, and we can revive both the mental health of this country while stopping the fentanyl epidemic that will kill more people this year than who died on 9/11. And I refuse to be a passive bystander
9/11
in the White House like the hollowed out.
What about the amount of people who died for COVID? What about that? Because I'm pretty sure the number of people that died of COVID exceeds the number of 9/11. I'm pretty sure. Here, let's check. $2,977 people. Okay, so roughly, if we're gonna round that up, let's say 3,000 people died in 9/11. $6 billion. Billion? No. A lot more than people in 9/11. Let's just say that. Why are we talking about 9/11? I don't know.
President we have, we will step up.
So Mark says Mexico's Sinaloa cartel has actually implicated building real tunnels. Yeah, there's been instances of tunnels being built for cartels to smuggle illegal drugs from Mexico to United States. For example, May 2022, authorities discovered an underground smuggling tunnel on the California-Mexico border that was about 6 football fields long and contained reinforced walls, electricity, ventilation, and a rail system. The tunnel was... This is weird. I'm going to have to put a bookmark in this because I'm like, I don't even know what to think.
Up and address this problem to stand for Americans and our children.
Encouraging TikTok. Quit encouraging TikTok.
That is why, everything he said I agree with. That is why, as Commander-in-Chief, I'm going to use the U.S. military to go after the Mexican drug cartels. They are killing our people. And the stories that I've seen, in Florida, we had an infant, 18 months, parents rented an Airbnb. And apparently the people that had rented it before were using drugs. The infant was crawling, the toddler was crawling on the carpet and ingested fentanyl residue and died. Are we just going to sit here and let this happen, this carnage happen in our country? I am not going to do that. So I guarantee you on day one, this border is going to be a day one issue for me as president. We're going to declare it a national emergency. Yes, we'll build the wall. We'll do remain in Mexico. But those Mexican drug cartels are going to be treated like the foreign terrorist organizations that they are.
President Pence. All right, Vice President Pence. We're going to move on to a different issue. Hold on, sir. Vice President Pence.
$5 billion.
Just last month, Vice President Pence, you said if elected, you would repeal all Obamacare mandates. However, you also made that same promise in 2016. And at that time, Trump-Pence had congressional majorities for at least the first 2 years, and you did not deliver on that promise. So Obamacare, right now, it is more popular than ever. Why should Americans trust you, if you become president, to fix that, or is Obamacare here to stay?
Well, first, let me speak to the mass shootings issue, and then I'll answer that question. It's an important one, Dana. Look, I'm someone that believes that justice delayed is justice denied. And as a father of three, as the grandfather of three beautiful little girls, I am sick and tired of these mass shootings happening in the United States of America. And if I'm president of the United States, I'm going to go to the Congress of the United States, and we're going to pass a federal expedited death penalty for anyone involved in mass shootings. So
I don't know about that, Pence.
Fate in months, not years. It is unconscionable that the Parkland shooter, Ron, is actually going to spend the rest of his life behind bars in Florida. That's not justice. We have to mete out justice and send a message to these.
Okay, so Pence is all about harsh corporal punishment. He's all about the death penalty, it seems like, in this instance. So what? So I'm assuming his strategy is, if we make the consequence of mass shootings a death penalty, then it will give people a second guess in participating in a shooting. But the problem is, a lot of the psychology behind mass shootings, the person who participates and puts on the mass shooting is already at the point of no return. They are already at the point where they can lose nothing. They have nothing to lose. So they're already to die. They're already ready to die. And I think that's something that's not going to work if we have a harsh corporal punishment of, like, well, anybody who commits a mass shooting gets the death penalty. I don't think that's going to work, because I think that's exactly what the mass shooters are going to want. They're already in the mindset of, like, I'm going to kill everybody else, and if I die too, perfect.
Would-be killers, that you are not going to live out your days behind bars. You're going to meet justice in this system.
But does that mean Obamacare is here to stay?
Woo!
Well, thank you for reiterating the question, because I'd love to answer it. Look, I think it's one of the choices here. You know, my former running mate, Donald Trump, actually has a plan to start to consolidate more power in Washington, D.C., consolidate more power in the executive branch. If I'm president of the United States, it's my intention to make the federal government smaller by returning to the states those resources and programs that are rightfully theirs under the 10th Amendment of the Constitution. That means all Obamacare funding, all housing funding, all HHS funding, all of it goes back to the states. We'll shut down the Federal Department of Education. Will allow states to innovate. We're going to revive federalism in America, and states are going to help bring America back.
Stu, go ahead.
May I remind everyone to keep within their time frame so that we can get as many questions in as possible. This question for Governor DeSantis. Over 26 million Americans don't have insurance coverage. Governor DeSantis, 2.5 million of them are in your state. That's worse than the national average. Can Americans trust you on this?
Well, I think this is a symptom of our overall economic decline. Everything has gotten more expensive. You see insurance rates are going through the roof. People that are going to get groceries. I spoke with a woman in Iowa, and she said, you know, for the first time in my life, I'm having to take things out of my grocery cart when I get to the checkout line, because the total goes up so quickly. So this is very real, and people are...
You don't know how to grocery budget? You don't know how to look at the price of an item and then tap it into a calculator, or at least round it off in your mind and figure out you don't have enough money for groceries? Who the fuck grocery shops willy-nilly and then realizes realizes at the end it's too much. I don't do that. I don't do that. I hardly ever have money for great groceries, but when I do grocery shop, I mean, it's like I know what the fuck I'm buying, so I don't understand what that means.
Hurting out there, so we've got to address the underlying problem with Bidenomics, the overspending, taking all Biden's rules and regulations. I'm going to throw them in the trash can on day one. You're not going to have to worry about that. We're going to open up all of our energy. We will be energy dominant in this country. That will lower your gas prices. And what we need to do with healthcare is recognize our healthcare is putting patients at the back of the bus. We have big pharma, big insurance, and big government, and we need to tackle that and have more power for the people and the doctor-patient relationship.
Governor, why is your record in Florida on insurance worse than the national average?
Our state's a dynamic state. We've got a lot of folks that come. Of course, we've had a population boom. We also don't have a lot of welfare benefits in Florida. You know, we're basically say this is a field of dreams. You can do well in the state, but we're not going to be like California and have massive numbers of people on government programs without work requirements. We believe you work and you got to do that, and so that goes for all the welfare benefits. And you know what that's done, Stuart? Our unemployment rate is the lowest amongst any big state. We have the highest GDP growth amongst any big state, and even CNBC, no fan of mine, ranked Florida the #1 economy in America.
Governor, we're moving on.
On the topic of healthcare, Governor Haley, healthcare is the leading cause of bankruptcy for American families, accounting for 2/3 of all personal bankruptcies. As president, how you protect Americans who get sick from financial ruin?
First of all, how can we be the best country in the world and have the most expensive health care in the world? We have an issue. My mom was in the hospital, and when she was in the hospital, they tried to bring her a couple of Tylenol, and she said, I don't need it. And they said, honey, go ahead and take it because you're paying for it anyway. Why is it that when we got the bill, the insurance company and the hospital negotiated the bill for her without her having anything to do with it? When I am president, we will break all of it, from the insurance company to the hospitals to the doctor's offices to the PBMs to the pharmaceutical companies. We will make it all transparent, because when you do that, you will realize that's what the problem is. Second thing is you've got to deal with tort law. The doctors don't give you the 10 tests because they want to. It's because of the 90% chance they'll get sued. And then we need to bring competition back to healthcare, get rid of certificate of need systems, and make sure that they can compete. We have to put the patient in the driver's seat. They've been in the back seat for way too long. And once we give the patient the ability to decide their health care, deciding which plan they want, that is when we will see magic happen. But we're going to have to make every part of the industry open up and show us where their warts are, because they all have them, and we need to fix this on behalf of the American people.
And that's what we did.
Do you have a better way in 30 seconds?
Well, yes, we're not talking about the real problem ever. We talk about why do we have the most expensive health care in the world. It's because the federal government got involved the same way they did with EVs, and they said, we're going to subsidize a particular kind of software back in 2008 under Obama, and they said, hey, we're going to do this. It's going to make everyone more productive. All of you that are watching have been to a doctor's office when the doctor's got his back to you and their hands on a keyboard. The only industry in the world that's ever absorbed $1 trillion of IT and became less productive, they saw less patients per day, is U.S. healthcare, because they were subsidizing a certain kind of technology. It wasn't about improving healthcare. It was about picking winners and losers. Every time the federal government's involved, whether it's higher education, healthcare, or now the auto industry, things get more expensive and less competitive.
That was a great transition, because we are going to move on the future of education in America. What's the government's role in finding a way forward? The second Republican debate rolls on from Simi Valley.
And informed patriotism is what we want.
Okay, go on, get. Go on, get.
And we are back live at the Raw Ronald Reagan Presidential Library in the Air Force One Pavilion for the second Republican debate. And let's get back to our questions. Governor Haley, American students, they are in academic trouble. They have lower scores in math and reading. There's chronic absenteeism. That's at record highs. And this has even been called education homicide. You say school choice is the answer, but South Carolina, your home state, still has not enacted universal school choice, and even the current expansion won't be fully implemented until 2027. Parents can't wait 4 years for a fix. So what would you do right now?
Well, and school choice isn't the only answer, but I'll tell you it's not out of a lack of trying that we didn't try and get school choice in South Carolina. What I'll tell you, first of all, is we have to acknowledge the fact that 67% of our 8th graders are not proficient in reading or math. Over 80% of our 8th graders aren't proficient in history or civics. And recently they came out and said our 12 and 13-year-olds are scoring at the lowest levels they've been scoring in reading and math in decades. So the first thing we've got to do is we've got to make sure we catch our kids back up. We have to make sure they can read. A child that can't read by 3rd grade is 4 times less likely to graduate high school. We need to do reading remediation. We need complete transparency in the classroom. No parent should ever wonder what's being said or taught to their child in the classroom. We need to make sure that we have school choice so that there's competition. We need to move all the programs from the federal government down to the states and let states decide what education looks like in their states. Right. And we need to start building things in America again. Let's put vocational classes back in our high schools, and let's get our kids building the things that we know that we can make. When we start to focus on that and really bring in that parental involvement, that's when we'll start to see a difference. But we've got to get parents back included. We've got to quit spending time on this DEI and CRT and instead focus on financial literacy, on digital literacy, and on making sure that our kids know what they need to do to have the jobs of the next generation.
On the subject of
You mean the kind of public education that pretty much whitewashes all of, like, American history? I don't know. If you actually sit down and learn real American history, you're going to find out quickly how much America sucks. That's not something they want to teach in the classrooms. And I don't think they're taking that into account when they're speaking about this, or when they're trying to answer this question about education.
Education. On the subject of education, a question for Governor Christie. Students in your state are getting high marks on their report cards, but minorities are not doing well with math and reading. Black and Hispanic students averaging 29 points lower than white students in New Jersey. Would you address minorities first?
You have to address all students. And look, in our state, Stuart, frankly, before I was governor, that gap was close to 50%. And what we did was institute more charter schools and more Renaissance schools and more public school choice in New Jersey with innovative solutions in cities like Camden, where now we took what was the worst school districts in America during my time, and we have now increased that by nearly 40% in terms of their proficiency. It can be done when you give people choice. But let's tell the truth to everybody about what this is. This public school system is no longer run by the public. It is run by the teachers' unions in this country. Randy Weingarten and her crew are...
So the education is run by teacher unions? You know, have you actually paid attention to what teachers are saying that's going on in public school? Because I don't think people realize, like, oh, let's get more support for public schools. I don't think people realize what quality of education that has. Because myself, I will say, when I grew up in public school, the quality of education was very poor. Very poor. So when he immediately goes to the idea of, like, teachers and teachers unions and saying, like, hey, we got to, like, end that stuff, that doesn't sit right with me, because I think teachers know what's going on in the classroom more than what we do.
Are absolutely strangling. They are taking the worst of their members and defending them rather than advocating for our kids. And when you have the President of the United States sleeping with a member of the teachers union, there is no chance that you could take the stranglehold away from the teachers union every day. They have an advocate inside the White House every day for the worst of their teachers, not for our students to be the best they can be. A President of the United States has to take on the teachers union. I did it in New Jersey, and I I will do it as President of the United States.
Governor DeSantis, I have a question for you. Governor DeSantis, I have a question for you.
Are you guys having trouble seeing me?
Florida's new Black History curriculum says, quote, slaves develop skills which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit. You have said slaves develop skills in spite of slavery, not because of it. But many are still hurt. For descendants of slaves, this is personal. What is your message to them?
So first of all, that's a hoax that was perpetrated by Kamala Harris. We are not going to be doing that. Second of all, that was written by descendants of slaves. These are great Black history scholars, so we need to stop playing these games. Here's the deal. Our country's education system is in decline because it's focused on indoctrination, denying parents' rights. Florida represents the revival.
The nerve of these people to claim indoctrination in education systems when our education systems are pretty much 80% indoctrination. This makes no sense to me.
Of American education. We're ranked #1 in the nation in education by U.S. News and World Report. My wife and I, we have a 6, 5, and 3-year-old. This is personal to us. We didn't just talk about universal school choice. We enacted universal school choice. We didn't just talk about Parents' Bill of Rights. We enacted the Parents' Bill of Rights. We eliminated critical race theory, and we now have American civics and the Constitution in.
Eliminated critical race theory. Okay, pause. I have to pee, but I'm going to come back to that. I'm going to backtrack it a little bit.
Your message to them.
So first of all, that's a hoax that was perpetrated by Kamala Harris. We are not going to be doing that. Second of all, that was written by descendants of slaves. These are great Black history scholars, so we need to stop playing these games. Here's the deal. Our country's education system is in decline because it's focused on indoctrination, denying parents' rights. Florida represents the revival of American education. We're ranked #1 in the nation in education by U.S. News and World Report. My wife and I, we have a 6, 5, and 3-year-old. This is personal to us. We didn't just talk about universal school choice. We enacted universal school choice. We didn't just talk about Parents' Bill of Rights. We enacted the Parents' Bill of Rights. We eliminated critical race theory, and we now have American civics and the Constitution in our schools in a really big...
Here's where I have something to say. He's talking about eliminating critical race theory. Critical race theory is not about how if you're white, you suck and you should be ashamed of yourself. That's not the point of it. And that, I feel like that's the big consensus with these kind of people like Ron DeSantis, where they're like, critical race theory? Oh, well, they're teaching our white children to feel guilty for no reason. That's not what that's about. if you teach real history of America to children in classrooms, you're going to find that it's not so brilliant as you think. A good book I like to recommend is this book is A People's History of the United States, and it's by Howard Zinn. This is a really good book. It's not the best magical book in the world, but it's a good book to discuss how America came to be and sort of like what it actually took for America to establish itself on the backs of other people. And it's not a political sort of book. It's not trying to convince you really of anything. It's just a harsh criticism at the development of America and its approach to establishing itself. This book blew my mind. So this is a really good book. A People's History of the United States. Howard Zinn. Introduction by Anthony Arnove. Really good to read and keep in mind.
Way, just like President Reagan asked for in his farewell address back in 1989. Florida is showing how it's done. We're standing with parents, and our kids are benefiting.
Senator Scott, you oppose to these new standards. What is your message for Governor DeSantis?
There is not a redeeming quality in slavery. He and Kamala should have just taken the one sentence out. America has suffered because of slavery, but we've overcome that. We are the greatest nation on earth because we faced our demons in the mirror and made a decision. So often we think that all the issues, you talked about crime and education and healthcare, we always think that those issues go back to slavery. Here's the challenge though. Black families survived slavery. We survived poll taxes and literacy tests. We survived discrimination being woven into the laws of our country. What was hard to survive was Johnson's Great Society, where they decided to put money, where they decided to take the black father out of the household to get a check in the mail, and you can now measure that in unemployment, in crime, in devastation. If you want to restore hope, you've got to restore the family, restore capitalism, and put Americans back at work together as one American family. Our nation continues to go in the right direction. It's why I can say I have been discriminated against, but America is not a racist country. Never, ever doubt who we are. We are the greatest country on God's green earth. And frankly, the city on the hill needs a brand new leader. And I'm asking for your vote.
I'm going to have a question for you, Mr. Ramaswamy. Over 10.7 million students in over 18,000 public schools nationwide have the ability to change their identity without parental notification. Governor Christie told Stewart last week that he would pass a federal law to protect parental rights. Would you try to do the same?
I have to be very clear about this. Transgenderism, especially in kids, is a mental health disorder. We have...
No! Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! We're not. We're. I am trans. I'm trans. I'm not a threat to the nation. I'm not. I don't have. Just goddamn. I don't have a This isn't a mental disorder. Sorry. I gotta go back. This is really offensive.
Have the ability to change their identity without parental notification. Governor Christie told Stewart last week that he would pass a federal law to protect parental rights. Would you try to do the same?
I have to be very clear about this. Transgenderism, especially in kids, is a mental health disorder.
No, it's not. No, it's not. I'm sorry. No, it's not. No, actually, I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry. This is not a mental disorder. It's not like a mental problem. Like, quite literally, you know what? I've been explaining this to people before. It's not hard to be transgender. It's not hard to be outside the binary of gender. It's not. You know who makes it hard? You know who decides to make it difficult? People who don't understand that. Okay, so like imagine this. If a trans person or a non-binary person is stuck on a stranded island with nobody around them and no connection to anything, the fucking last thing we're thinking about is like, oh my God, I'm stuck on a stranded island and I'm trans. Like, nobody's thinking that. Other people make that difficult. We don't think like that. Other people make it difficult. It's not a mental problem. People don't magically decide to be trans at 18 years old. People don't magically decide to be gay at 18 years old. Nobody does that. It doesn't just pop out of fucking nowhere. There's no mental illness. The mental illness is assuming that cis heteronormative interactions is the only way, and anything outside of that is deemed mentally fucking unwell. That doesn't make any fucking sense. How fucking limited. It's like if you put your hands around the sides of your face like horse blinders, it's like this. It's like living life with horse blinders. Like, nope. Nothing outside the scope of behavior is normal. Everything I say within this range, that's normal. Anything outside of that is not. You can't do that. That doesn't make any sense. That's subjective. That's your personal opinion. Those are your feelings. I don't think this is normal. Who cares what you think? And I don't mean that as in you don't matter. Everybody matters. But there's a point where you got to realize your personal feelings are very limited when it comes to humanity as a whole. You are not the main character of reality. You and your feelings are not the end-all and be-all of existence. Okay? You're in a world with other people. Sorry. That's just like... Just the idea that children who are discovering that they're trans, to convince those children that they actually have a mental disorder, that to me is a very vicious type of manipulation. It tells that child, hey, if you think this way, you're a fucking psycho, and you're a fucking sick, disgusting person. And that's a terrible thing to tell a kid. Absolutely. Why would you do that? Okay. I, from as early as I could remember, realized that I was somewhere weirdly outside or in between, or however I could describe it, something beyond man and woman, yet able to display some of both. You know what I mean? Like, it was never something that I suddenly decided that this would be cool. It's like, hey, this is how I've been feeling the whole time of my life since I was born, since I could remember. It's not a mental disorder. It's coming to an awareness and an understanding of like how I'm perceiving this world. You know, everything in reality is mathematical, that's for sure. Okay. Everything can be explained mathematically. There's an objective aspect to reality, but there's also like this aspect that's subjective, that's like pure experience. You know what I mean? Like, it's pure experience. Like, you can explain reality in mathematical whatever, and it makes it okay. I'm trying to think like a million thoughts at the same time. That's why I'm getting ahead of myself and pausing at weird, awkward moments. So I'm trying to figure out how to explain this. Reality is very rational, ordered. It's very mathematical. That's the sort of like why things are. And even the how. But the experience of it, okay, if you have like the mathematical code of a video game, the mathematical code that makes the video game, and you're like, okay, this is why the video game is because there's a mathematical code, a computer code to make the video game possible. That's the objective sort of things. But when you experience life, when you experience those mathematics, that's like the experience, that is the experience of things. So weird to double up on those words. There's a difference between knowing how the video game is possible and why you're playing it, and then you're like, here's the experience of playing it. It's the joy of it. When you play a video game, you understand that there's a mathematical code making it a reality. That's like life, okay? Reality is rational. It has a mathematical code to it. It has, and I don't mean code as in like it's secret. Like it's something that you can't understand. But it's a very rational sort of like reality. There's a difference between understanding why that is, why there's like this can of root beer in my hand, and then like the difference between that and my experience drinking the root beer and describing the taste. That's the experience of it. And it's that area of experience, that very subjective, that very like, well, my description of what a grape tastes like and what you think a grape tastes like is like very different. That's the area that still has that mathematical basis, but it's like, do we really have to obsess over that specifically? Like, do we really have to like talk about that specifically, or can we just agree that we're all going to feel differently about things? Whenever you look into gender, it falls apart. It's kind of like reality. You know, every time you think, well, reality is elements. Oh, and then reality is atoms. You know, it's material. And then suddenly you realize it's none of those things. Nobody knows what it is. But they do. But some people do. And reality is actually like mathematical. And I don't mean that as in like numbers like fly by your face or anything like that. I mean like the only way you can understand it is mathematical. If you break reality down to nothing, then you kind of, okay, so like if you look into quantum physics, okay, follow me here. If you look into like all of that stuff, it's like, hey, how do we break things down into smaller pieces? We get down to atoms. They don't actually know what atoms are. They're made out of this, they're made out of that. And by the time you get to the bottom of it, you understand that the only way to look at that sort of thing is through mathematics, because that's the only universal language of everything. It doesn't lie. But there's a subjectivity of mathematics, and it's how we live, it's how we taste, it's how my root beer tastes to me, it's how things feel to me, how things feel to you. And gender is something that's part of that, right? If you take a look into gender and what it means and what we've defined it as, the more you try to dive into it, the less you're going to find it's made out of anything substantial. It's kind of made of nothing. We just kind of made it up. Much like assuming that reality is made of matter. Every time you try to break down matter, you can't actually figure out what reality is, except for you can through mathematics. So it's sad to me for somebody to label experiencing, like, especially like as a kid, you're like, hey, I don't think like I'm a this gender. Suddenly it's like, well, you have a mental problem, right? Who are you to say that somebody else's subjective experience of reality, although mathematical, is wrong? You can't. I mean, if you look back in time, the term woman wasn't even a thing. At first, humanity referred to itself as man, which included women. And even after that point, I mean, I lost my point there. But, like, so I'm trying to say, like, this guy is trying to say that kids experiencing trans issues, at a young age, are actually suffering from a mental issue. It's like, you can't actually say that because you're not actually exploring the depths of that concept. What is gender? What is this? What is that? Like, just trans kids are not suffering from anything. Trans people don't magically appear at the age of 18. Like, we're here from the very beginning. And your concept of gender and your concept of sex, as in like the organs you have and the correlation of that and the behavior you should display, it's kind of nothing. Although this is all a mathematical reality, that sort of subjective experience just really doesn't, it's not important. It's like, yeah, I guess you could figure out the calculations of that, but, like, does it matter? Anyways, I hope that makes sense. I think I just went on a rant. Did I just have a rant? That was amazing. Okay.
We have to acknowledge the truth of that for what it is. I met two young women early in this campaign.
Specifically on parental rights in schools.
Parents have the right to know. And you know what the hypocrisy of this is? Even New Hampshire failed to actually get past a piece of legislation here. The very people who say that this increases the risk of suicide are also the ones saying that parents don't have the right to know about that increased risk of suicide. And I'm sorry, it is not compassionate to affirm a kid's confusion. That is not compassion, that is cruelty. I met two young women, Chloe and Katie, early in this campaign, who are in their 20s, now regret getting double mastectomies and a hysterectomy. One of them will never have children. And the fact that we allowed that to happen
doesn't matter. Who is that? Who are these two young women that he's referencing? Like, what is he talking about? We don't have any access to that information. For all I know, he could be pulling that out of his ass. You know what? I'll tell you what. As a trans person myself, I never know about other trans people, mainstream trans people, until a transphobic asshole points them out. As soon as somebody transphobic points a trans person out, then I know about them. And then it's like, oh my God. But it's like, it's that thing I was saying earlier where it's like, if we were stuck on an island by ourselves, we would never think about how trans we are, right? It's like, it's only other people. It's like, I would have never known about that other trans person unless you would have made a big fucking deal about it. And it's, I like that other trans person. Great, what, more power to you. I have no problem with that. I have every problem with only finding out about other trans people through the whole like lens of transphobic people. Look at this awful nasty person, and it's like, are you serious? That's one of me, you dick. Like, hey, Imaginista, oh my God, thank you so much for gifting a membership. And Mark got it. That's awesome. Okay, let's see. Do some of these Zeta monad things. The singularities. Let's do the singularities. Also, like with this whole hysterectomy thing, there's kind of this air that no matter what, if anybody has the capability to bear a child or like be pregnant, if they choose not to bear a child, suddenly it's instantly associated with regret. Like, if you choose not to bear a child and you can, then you're a terrible person, and that's not natural. So that's kind of like a weird line of thinking for me. Just because you can be pregnant doesn't mean you should or should have to. You know what I mean? Just because you can be pregnant and carry to term a child doesn't mean you should have to. I could, I guess, like, if I tried, but I shouldn't have to, and I shouldn't have to be told that that's a regret, you know, if I don't explore that.
In this country is barbaric. So I will ban genital mutilation or chemical castration under the age of 18, and parents have absolutely
would you
the
try
right.
to pass a federal law that says parents should have that right?
We are going to require states absolutely have to follow that through.
Governor Burgum
we
just
stand
to follow
for
up on
parental
this
rights.
because
Yes.
you in your state you do not have a law that says parents can't be notified, but you want to be president. Would you try to pass a federal law to say parents have that right?
I think this is a state's issue, but I do want to say something, because all night long we've been talking about issues about how it's broken in Washington, and I respect all of the people on the stage here for their 100+ years of public service. Thank you. But the reason why we're not talking about education or health care or safety being a problem in North Dakota is because we have a business leader. I've got more experience as a business leader than I think this whole group combined. I know I've created more jobs than everybody else on stage, thousands of high-paying jobs that have real meaning. So as a business leader, you come in and you treat the taxpayer like a customer. So in North Dakota, instead of fighting with the teachers' unions, we actually created a K-12 coordinating council. Everybody gets in the room, and the customer is the student.
But you do understand that this is an issue that many people in America really are concerned about, worried about parents and notification in schools.
Yes, and that's why we have 50 platforms of innovation. That's why we have states. There are certain things the federal government is supposed to do. It's not the Department of Education. That needs to be assembled. We got to move it back to states. Do what we did in North Dakota. Instead of like, oh, here's a choice school and here's an old school, the old way with the teachers union, the kids are trapped. We made every school in North Dakota an innovation school. Every school got out from under the red tape, and the things that help teach the values that we're trying to get, like 4-H, like FFA, like Boy Scouts, they can get credit for all of that stuff in North Dakota. And by the way, North Dakota is now at the top of the median SAT scores in the country right now.
Vice President Pence, the Department of Homeland Security warns that violence against LGBTQ+ people is on the rise and intensifying.
Oh, no.
According to a recent study, members of that community are 9 times more likely to be victims of violent hate crimes. As president, how would you protect this community from violent attacks and discrimination?
Well, as President of the United States, I'll stand up for the safety and the civil liberties of every American, from every background.
How?
I want the American people to know that. But I want to answer the question as well, Dana, that you just asked Doug Burgum. Because by way of full disclosure, Chris, you mentioned the president's situation. My wife isn't a member of the teachers union, but I got to admit, I've been sleeping with a teacher for 38 years. And so full disclosure, look, education is a state and local function. The state of Indiana had one of the very first school choice programs in the country. And when I was governor of the state of Indiana, we doubled it. And as to your question, Dana, let's be very, very clear. When the Linn-Mar Community Schools in Iowa had a policy where you had to have a permission slip from your parents to get a Tylenol, but you could get a gender transition plan without notifying your parents, I weighed in with a foundation. That's not bad policy, that's crazy. We're going to stand up for the rights of parents, and we're going to pass a federal ban on transgender chemical or surgical surgery anywhere in the country. We've got to protect our kids from this radical.
No children, no transgender children are being chemically castrated. None. We do have long-term studies of puberty blockers used as treatment for transgender treatment since the 80s. Like, this is not new. This is not new. There's so much research to show that puberty blockers is not chemical castration. And this is what's disturbing to me, and this is something that I would actually like to talk about in the future, is the fact that they're talking about chemical castration of children, but yet at the same time, there's laws in some states being pushed to, like, make it so kids can get married at a younger and younger age. So it's not protecting children from radical ideas. It's pushing the idea that young people should be perpetuating the sort of like Christian, like sort of lifestyle, and have children at a very young age and get married and all those things. This is something I experienced in Mormonism as well. So this is very disturbing to me. Like, we could also have like a whole, I feel like I'm gonna have to like watch back on this live stream and sort of like pick out like individual discussions we should be having, because it's like, this could be like a whole other like 2-hour discussion of what it means to have limitations on young people, determining like if a puberty blocker is castrating kids, which it's not. And then like saying that's bad, but it's like, what do you want children to be fertile for? Like, what do you want kids to be able to fertilize? And that's a weird term to put it. Like, you want kids to be able to have more kids? Like, what's going on? Even if there was a castration element to this, which there's not. Like, so what? You want children to be fertile? Like, that's so weird to me. That's probably a very, like, loose, like, not so great, like, take on things, but, like, we'll take that. We'll take it. For the stream, at least.
Gender ideology agenda, and we've got to empower parents at the state level with the ability to choose where their kids go to school, whether it's public, private, parochial, or homeschool. You empower parents, and our schools will straighten up and reflect our values and focus on the basics faster than you could possibly imagine.
Next subject.
Can I just say one thing?
China is investing. If you talk over everybody, we lose time. China is investing heavily in their tech companies. $280 billion every year on semiconductor research and development. That is one CHIPS Act per year. Governor DeSantis, you say companies like Google and Meta have too much power. Doesn't going after them give China an edge?
No, I think you look at how our societies develop, they have huge amount of power over our society. They've cracked down on free speech. We're not saying you don't want them to do business, but you want it to be a free market. And right now they're monopolies. But this issue of China, I think, is really going to be fundamental. We have subcontracted out so much of our national needs to the CCP. We rely on them for a whole host of issues. We need to reshore and we need to decouple all those important industries. We need to get that back in the United States. They are our top geopolitical adversary by a country mile. Xi Jinping's got huge ambitions, not only in the Asia Pacific, but as you mentioned earlier, in our region. But ultimately, we've got to beat him on the economy. And so that's what we'll do as President of the United States.
Governor Christie, I wanted to follow up on this because 22% of American workers fear their jobs will be lost to a robot. And you said in the past that the free market is the way to go. Would you retrain workers who lose a job to artificial intelligence, and to do what?
Well, look, what I think artificial intelligence offers us is an extraordinary opportunity to expand well beyond the productivity that we have now, and to have Americans be able to be involved in that revolution, Dana.
I mean, there's some essence to that I agree with, but it's a very thin essence. Very thin essence.
You know, each time we have shown incredible innovation and progress in this country. What we've done with it is to expand all kinds of new, even unthought of opportunities for folks. Yes, we have to do retraining for folks who lose some of their jobs, and we should be doing that. And we should have more training available both at the county college level and the local level for people to be able to access it. So yes, I would be in favor of that. But this is a much bigger issue than that. We can't be afraid of innovation. America has been the great innovator of this world over the last 250 years, a technological innovator, a manufacturing innovator, and a freedom and governmental innovator. And that's why America has to continue to stand strong in the world, pro-innovation, pro-progress. And I will tell you this, as President of the United States, what I will do is to make sure that every innovator in this country gets the government the hell off its back and out of its pocket so that it can innovate and bring great new inventions to our country that will make everybody's lives better.
Mr. Ramaswamy, TikTok is banned on government-issued devices because of its ties to the Chinese government. Yet you joined TikTok after dinner with boxer and influencer Jake Paul. Should the commander...
Oh no. You know our generation, and I mean my generation, is, and maybe younger, is doomed when we have political issues tied in with Jake Paul and TikTok. I don't know what to say about that. But, like, seriously, TikTok, social media is totally intertwined politically, socially, very deeply. For some reason, I guess I'll just lean into it, even though I'm exhausted already.
Chief be so easily persuaded by an influencer?
So the answer is I have a radical idea for the Republican Party. We need to win elections. And part of how we win elections is reaching the next generation of young Americans where they are. So when I get into office, I've been very clear. Kids under the age of 16 should not be using addictive social media. We're only going to ever get to declaring independence from China, which I favor, if we actually win. So while the Democrats are running rampant, reaching the next generation 3-1, there's exactly one person in the Republican Party which talks a big game about reaching young people, and that's me. And let me level with all of you. I'm the new guy here.
Me.
And so I know I have to earn your trust. What do you see? You see a young man who's in a bit of a hurry, maybe a little ambitious, bit of a know-it-all, it seems at times. I'm here to tell you, no, I don't know it all. I will listen. I will have the best people, the best and brightest in this country, whatever age they are, advising me. We will be probably many of the people on this stage included. That's how I built my companies. I want to be challenged. I want people who disagree with me. That's what makes America great, because we're not a perfect nation. We're founded on the pursuit of perfection. That is what makes America great. And that is why we will end it once we win this election.
I have to jump. I have to jump in here. I'm sorry. There's one person on this.
This is infuriating because TikTok is one of the most dangerous social media apps that we could have. And what you've got, I honestly, every time I hear you, I feel a little bit dumber for what you say.
What? Did she just actually fucking say that? I mean, what the fuck am I watching right now? Really? Oh god, backtrack. That was amazing. What the fuck? Are you fucking kidding me? That was amazing. Are you serious?
We can't be afraid of innovation.
Girl!
America has been the great innovator of this world over the last 250 years, a technological innovator.
Good evening from Hofstra University in Hempstead.
Oh, damn it. I lost it. Hold on.
Carl Rowe, thank you very much.
Kids under the
to pay bureaucrats' pensions and salary.
TikTok and
I think that this is very important.
Mr. Ramaswamy, you have 15 seconds.
They are advising me. We will be probably many of the people on this stage included. That's how I built my companies. I want to be challenged. I want people who disagree with me. That's what makes America great, because we're not a perfect nation. We're founded on the pursuit of perfection. That is what makes America great. And that is why we will end it once we win this election.
I have to jump. I have to jump in here. I'm sorry. There's one person on this.
This is infuriating because TikTok is one of the most dangerous social media apps that we could have. And what you've got, I honestly, every time I hear you, I feel a little bit dumber for what you say. I can't believe that here you've got a TikTok situation. What they're doing is these 150 million people are on TikTok.
Damn! Oh my fuck! God, I mean, there's been some, like, spicy throwings, like, this whole thing. But, like, that, god damn.
This is infuriating because TikTok is one of the most dangerous social media apps that we could have. And what you've got, I honestly, every time I hear you, I feel a little bit dumber for what you say. I can't believe that here you've got a TikTok situation. What they're doing is these 150 million people are on TikTok. That means they can get your contacts, they can get your financial information, they can get your emails, they can get text messages, they can get all of these things.
This is very important for our party.
Exactly what they're doing.
This is very important for our party, and I'm going to say
you've gone and you've helped China make medicines in China, not America. You're now wanting kids to go and get on the social media that's dangerous for all of us. You went and you were in business with the Chinese that gave Hunter Biden $5 million. We can't trust you. We can't trust you. We can't have TikTok in our kids' lives.
This is very important.
Ramaswamy, you have 15 seconds. You have 15 seconds, Mr. Ramaswamy.
Thank you. I think we would be better served as a Republican Party if we're not sitting here hurling personal insults and actually have a legitimate debate about policy following Reagan's 11th Amendment in his honor. And the answer is that is what actually makes our country strong. And I believe in these people. These are good people on the stage. They disagree, but let's have a legitimate disagreement. That's what I would say.
Stuart, can we get back to the question? The question is on technology.
Governor DeSantis, I'm going straight
on this stage
Sir,
that has a
we
career in
will have to
technology.
cut your mic, and I don't want to do that. I don't. So, Governor DeSantis, speaking to you. Experts say President Putin has ordered assassinations across Europe, cheated on arms control treaties with the U.S., and seeks to work with China to force our decline. President Reagan believed that if you want to prevent a war, you better be prepared to fight one. Today, the Republican Party is at odds over aid to Ukraine. The price tag so far is $76 billion. But is it in our best interest to degrade Russia's military for less than 5% of what we pay annually on defense, especially when there are no U.S. soldiers in the fight?
It's in our interest to end this war, and that's what I will do as president. We are not going to have a blank check. We will not have U.S. troops, and we're going to make the Europeans do what they need to do. But they've sent money to pay bureaucrats' pensions and salaries and funding small businesses halfway around the world. Meanwhile, our own country is being invaded. We don't even have control of our own territory. We have got to defend the American people before we even worry about all these other things. And I watch these guys in Washington, D.C., and they don't care about the American people. They don't care about the fentanyl deaths. They don't care about the communities being overrun because of this border. They don't care about the Mexican drug cartels. So as Commander-in-Chief, I will defend this country's sovereignty.
But it's not a territorial dispute. It's never been a territorial dispute.
And 90% of the resources that we send over to Ukraine is guaranteed as a loan. It is not 90% of the money that we send over there is loan. Well, we can talk about this, but at the end of the day, 90% of the money that we send over there is actually in the form of a loan. It's not actually not be paid by Ukraine, it's paid by the NATO, our NATO allies.
So I think it's a good topic.
I think it's a really good topic too. I will say, let's debate the fact that our national vital interest is in degrading the Russian military. By degrading the Russian military, we actually keep our homeland safer, we keep our troops at home, and we all understand Article 5 of NATO.
We have to level with the American people.
I thought you said something about waiting until your turn to talk. So hold on. So at the end of the day, I'm going to finish my. I'll be happy to debate this.
I'll respond.
I'll look forward to this one right now.
Wow.
So at the end of the day, when you think about the fact that if you want to keep American troops at home, attack on NATO territory would bring us and our troops in. By degrading the Russian military, we reduce, if not eliminate, an attack on NATO territory.
Finish that exchange. We have to level with the American people. We have to level with the American people on this issue. The reality is just because Putin is not Putin's an evil dictator does not mean that Ukraine is good. This is a country that has banned 11 opposition parties.
A win
that has
for
actually,
Russia is a
that
win
is not
for
true.
China.
We're driving Russia.
A win for Russia is a win for China.
Excuse me, if you have
but
a chance.
I forgot you like China. That's why you're
you'll have your chance in just a moment.
Yeah.
The hurling personal insults isn't helping. China is the real enemy, and we're driving Russia further into China's arms. We need a reasonable peace plan to end this, especially this is a country whose president just last week
Vivek,
was hailing
if you let
Nazi in
Putin
his
have
ranks.
Ukraine, that's a green light to China to take Taiwan.
We need a
Peace
reasonable
comes
plan
through strength.
Damn. It's kind of like I've wanted to pause this and talk about like some of these issues, but it's like it's flying so fast at this point. I'm like, I'm just trying to keep up, yo.
Governor Christie.
Governor Christie.
The Communist Party of China is the real enemy.
Governor Christie. Governor Christie. President Biden's first 2 years have brought China, Russia, and Iran closer together. Are we focused too much on Ukraine and not enough on this threat from the New World Order?
No, they're all connected, Stuart. They're all connected. The Chinese are paying for the Russian war in Ukraine. The Iranians are supplying more sophisticated weapons, and so are the North Koreans now as well, with the encouragement of the Chinese. The naivete on this stage from some of these folks is extraordinary. Look, I understand people want to go and talk to Putin. Guess what? So did George W. Bush. So did Barack Obama. So did Donald Trump. And so did Joe Biden when he said a small invasion wouldn't be so bad. Every one of them has been wrong. And the fact of the matter is, we need to say right now that the Chinese-Russian alliance is something we have to fight against, and we are not going to solve it by going over and cuddling up to Vladimir Putin. Look, Donald Trump said Vladimir Putin was brilliant and a great leader.
It's true.
This is the person who is murdering people in his own country, and now not having enough blood, he's now going to Ukraine to murder innocent civilians and kidnap 20,000 children. And let me tell you, if you think that's where it's going to stop, if we give him any of Ukraine, next will be Poland. Right. This is a guy who said, wait one sec, this is a guy in 1991 who said that.
I think we're definitely in the future going to be diving into like the Ukraine and Russian situation, but like we have to do it with care and with at the appropriate time.
That was the darkest moment in world history when the Soviet Union fell. Listen, everybody, he wants to put the old band back together, and only America can stop it. And when I'm president, we will.
Governor Burgum, I want to get to Governor Burgum. He hasn't had a chance. I have a question I think you're going to really like, or at least you have experience in it. And we need to talk about America's farmers because there is a foreign policy connection here. The U.S. and China are in this fierce economic competition. It's hurting American businesses.
Good night, Elise. We love you. Thank you so much for coming. Elise is one of our like awesome moderators, and I'm talking about Imaginista. Anyways, have a good weekend. We'll see you later. Good night, honey.
And there is blowback against American farmers because China then targets them in retaliation. How would you as president protect American farmers and ranchers from that kind of retaliation from a foreign government like China?
Well, first of all, we've got the best farmers and ranchers in the world right here in America. If they have a level playing field, they can outcompete anyone in the world. But this is part of the larger issue that we're talking about here, which is we're in a Cold War with China. The Biden administration won't admit that. But we're also in an economic war through what we're doing with agriculture and energy. And we're also in a war with them relative to cyber war. We get attacked every day in North Dakota, every state, every school district, our tribes, all being attacked every day by either China, Russia, Iran, or North Korea. And now we've got a Biden administration whose whole policy is appeasement. They're out there, creating the world, making it less safe. $6 billion they traded for 5 people. They've just now set a price on anyone's head who's a tourist from America, who's a student from America, for kidnapping. If you want more kidnapping, put a price on it. And then they're also helping Iran get to have more closer to nuclear weapons.
The next time you're in trouble, call a crackhead.
Which pushes all of the Middle East closer to China and Russia. The whole thing is absurd. And then, of course, we're going to give Ukraine to Russia, and then we're going to give Taiwan to China and think that's a foreign policy. That will make our nation less successful, make us more poor. And at the core of all that is energy policy, because China imports 10 million barrels of oil a day. They're the largest importer in the world, and we've had 4 cabinet members from the Biden administration there this summer, and none of them talked about U.S. energy. The first one to go to each of those countries was Kerry to talk about the folly of the climate policy, which is making the world less stable. It's empowering dictators. It's not about climate change that we need worried about. It's about the Biden climate policies that are actually the existential threat to America's future.
Thank you.
Can I speak about
Governor Haley, Mexico's president called who supports sending U.S. military into the country, quote, scoundrels. Mexico is the United States' most important trade partner and border security. You say you will send special operations to
Jim Henson
attack the cartels in Mexico. So, this means boots on the ground, drone strikes.
It means special operations. It's how we deal with our terrorists. And what you need to do is understand that Mexico's not being a good partner if we lost 75,000 Americans last year. Mexico's not being a good partner if they're letting the cartels get away with what they're getting away with. What we will do is we will make sure that we send in our special operations, and we will take out the cartels, we'll take out their operations, we'll take out anything that's doing it. But we're going to go after China because China is the one sending the
Why does this sound like a plot to like a cheesy 1980s action film plot? You know what I mean? This sounds like an Arnold Schwarzenegger film, or like Jean-Claude Van Damme, or like a fucking like Rambo movie, what they're talking about right now.
in the first place. And we will end all normal trade relations until China stops sending fentanyl. And then we'll do the special operations and we'll get it from both sides. This is where President Trump went wrong. He focused on trade with China. He didn't focus on the fact that they were buying up our farmland. He didn't focus on the fact that they were killing Americans. He didn't focus on the fact that they were stealing $600 billion in intellectual property. He didn't focus on the fact that they put a spy base off our shores in Cuba. They didn't focus enough on the fact that all of our law enforcement
Are these people being paid for this? Are they being paid for these thoughts? I want this job. I want this job. I could totally do this. I can
Phones
make
in
a bullshit.
America are Chinese, and we've got all these little surveillance cells. We need to start focusing on what keeps Americans safe. That hasn't happened in a long time. As your president, I will make sure every American is safe, and we'll do whatever it takes to make that happen.
All right. I want to get to Senator Scott. You're all auditioning for the job as President of the United States. You want to earn these votes. But the world's problems land in the Oval Office. During the presidential debates in the year 2000, neither Al Gore nor George W. Bush was asked about al-Qaeda. Yet, just 1 year later, al-Qaeda's attack on September 11th claimed nearly 3,000 lives. And the farther we get from September 11th, the closer we are to September 10th. Senator Scott, you have no executive branch experience. What has prepared you to protect the nation from a major man-made national security crisis?
Well, one of the things I've had the good fortune of doing is serving on committees in the United States Senate, like the Senate Armed Services Committee. I'm on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, also on the Finance Committee and the Banking Committee. Talk about addressing the issue of fentanyl. I've written the legislation, passed it through the Banking Committee and the Senate that would freeze the assets and sanction the accounts of the Mexican cartels. There are weapons that we have within the arsenal that I was able to get past 23-0 in the polarizing Senate as it is. I've also understood without question the fact that if you look at the details before 9/11, there was information and intelligence that was available that suggested an attack was coming. Having the right intelligence partners with us is key to making sure that we prevent the next 9/11 from ever happening.
We should dive into 9/11 sometime. Maybe. I don't know. I'm afraid of that subject.
Having that experience for the last 10 years is really important in getting...
The reason I would be afraid of that subject is because America holds it so near and dear to its heart that it's really hard to give criticism or commentary on it, because like anything out of a line of like patriotism is considered terrorism, and it's like so black and white. You know what I mean?
The job done.
30 seconds to you, Mr. Pence.
Well, I think you asked a question about executive experience. I think it's vitally important. And I stand before you today as a candidate for president because I think this country's in a lot of trouble. And you hear the fire on the stage tonight. You hear the fire in all of our voices. And it's because Joe Biden has weakened this country at home and abroad. This is a time for those of us that have the experience, the tested experience, and a commitment to the conservative agenda that Ronald Reagan brought forward in this party of a strong national defense, standing with our allies, standing up to our enemies, supporting limited government and traditional values, need to step forward.
Understood.
Because, frankly, our party does face a time for choosing, as I said at the top of this debate, whether we're going to stand on the foundation of that conservative agenda that Ronald Reagan poured, or whether we're going to follow the siren song of populism unmoored to conservative principles. I'm the most experienced, most qualified, and most consistent conservative in this field, and I'm ready to lead America at home and abroad on day one.
Okay. To go to a break. Ilya. We need to go to a commercial break. Reagan built a coalition that lasted decades. Can any of these candidates do the same?
Welcome back to the Republican primary debate here at the Reagan Library. We've got a lot more issues to cover and a lot more questions to go, so let's dive right back in. We're here in California, where gas is nearing $6 a gallon. Oil is close to $100 a barrel again. You say, drill, baby, drill. But the courts won't let you. Mr. Ramaswamy, how would you bring down prices without immediate drilling?
Well, look, I think that we do have to run through the courts and get through that administrative state to make sure we're using the natural resources here at home. But here's the other thing that we can do that's easy.
It would take forever, Mr. Ramaswamy.
And it addresses the national debt as well as brings down prices. Put people back to work. We are using taxpayer money to pay
more work,
people more
honey.
to stay at home than to go to work. That is wrong. That contributes to our supply chain crisis. It contributes to inflation. That's the easiest way to unlock this economy. And here's the other thing. We have to put the Federal Reserve back in its place. This is an agency that has gone rogue. So in January 2026, when I have the opportunity as your next commander-in-chief, We will have a new chairman of the Federal Reserve who places priority on dollar stability, and then most importantly, send packing 75% of the administrative state, reduce the federal employee headcount by 75%, rescind 50% of unconstitutional federal regulations that are shackling businesses, both large and small. I've offered a very clear, practical plan to do it. That's how we unleash the economy. That's how we revive the integrity of a three-branch constitutional republic rather than this technocracy and aristocracy in the administrative state.
Response, please.
Wow.
I think one of the signature accomplishments of our administration was in just a few short years, we achieved energy independence. We became a net exporter of energy for the first time in 75 years. But on day one, Joe Biden declared a war on energy, which was no surprise because when Joe Biden ran for president, he said he was going to end fossil fuels. And they've been working overtime to do that ever since. If I'm president of the United States, we're going to open up federal lands. We're going to unleash American energy. We're going to have an all-of-the-above energy strategy. And I have a plan that actually would not only reclaim energy independence, but in 2006, America lost our position as the leading energy producer on Earth. I believe in the next 10 years, with the right policies and experienced leadership in the White House, we can reclaim our role as the leading energy producer on Earth, and that'll grow the American economy for generations to come.
Governor Haley, reaction to that, please.
As the only person who's leading an energy state, could I answer the energy question?
No, Governor Haley.
So, the first thing I'll say is what I saw at the United Nations is energy security is national security. We need a president that understands we have to partner with our producers and make sure that we have their backs. What you don't need is a president who is against energy independence. Ron DeSantis is against fracking. He's against drilling. He's been against, you did it. He always talks about what happens on day one. You better watch out because what happens.
I love how that's more of a genuine smile that Ron DeSantis delivers than the actual smile he tries to deliver at the end of his,
on day two is
points.
When you're in trouble. Day two in Florida, you banned fracking,
you
banned offshore drilling, you did it on federal lands, and you took green subsidies that you didn't have to take.
Governor DeSantis, you were mentioned. You have the right to respond. 30 seconds.
Yeah. I just did a plan out in West Texas for American energy dominance. We're going to choose Midland over Moscow. We're going to choose the Marcellus over the Mullahs, and we're going to choose Bakken over Beijing, and we are going to lower your gas prices. We are going to get that job done because it's important for our national security, it's important for jobs, and that's one of the best ways to drive down inflation.
Governor DeSantis, Governor DeSantis, Governor DeSantis, this question is for you.
Our voters enacted a constitutional amendment
banned it before
that
they
doesn't
voted.
allow. No, it's not true.
You
They
banned it before they voted. And not only that,
They voted it in. That's what we did. Onshore, we do it in Florida. We don't have as much as maybe West Texas, but we do it. But that was a constitutional. So that's just wrong. And let's just get real here. My plan will get the job done. We are going to be energy dominant, and that's what's going to happen.
And the voters didn't even vote on fracking, and you banned
We
fracking.
are moving on with this question for Governor DeSantis. Governor, excuse me, we cannot talk over each other. We must respect each other's time. My apologies for that.
I'm ready, Stuart.
Governor DeSantis, this is your question. The Biden administration is hell-bent on student loan forgiveness, but you say colleges should be on the hook when graduates cannot pay their debt. How does that address the cost of college? The cost of college itself?
Because the colleges are going to have to make a decision. Do we expand the gender studies department, knowing some of those graduates?
Whoa, what does gender studies have to do with this shit? What the fuck does that? That was so out of pocket. Is it me? Am I insane? Or am I is our demographic being targeted again? And I don't mean R as in you. I mean like R as in anybody who's LGBT or not cisgender.
Graduates may not have great learning opportunities. No, they're going to focus on the things that really matter. They're going to make different choices. They're going to try to graduate people in 4 years. I also just want to come back to something Dana asked last segment about 9/11, because I was just at the 9/11 with the families. My wife and I were invited.
From gender to 9/11. All right,
Very
I guess
touching
we're here.
and it affected my life because
you know what this feels like? This feels like the moment in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, where like it's like you're in the boat and you're going down the river, and like Willy Wonka is like having this weird like like trip out, and he's like saying all this weird shit. And it's like, does anybody know that? Does anybody know the original, like, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory? Like, that moment where Willy Wonka is, like, going crazy and he's, like, spouting this weird shit as they're, like, in the river, like, in the boat and, like, going out. Like, this is what I feel like right now.
I ended up joining the
Same
military
vibe.
as a result of that. I've been a blue-collar kid, minimum wage in Dunedin, Florida. I ended up getting through Yale and Harvard Law School and somehow came out more conservative than when I went in, and that is not easy to do. Had a lot of opportunities to make money, but I wanted to serve, and I'll never forget coming back on the plane from Iraq, landing in Coronado, California, North Island, and feeling that breeze off the Pacific Ocean and say, you know what? I am lucky to have been born an American, and I think being able to serve and
the going keeps on going, and the knowing keeps on knowing, and like, I don't know, like, it's just, I'm tripping out genuinely right now. I'm just like, what in the fuck?
I'll be the first president elected since 1988 who's actually served overseas in a war. I think that's going to help me as commander-in-chief to know how you see these issues and understand that there are real lives at stake for people that wear the uniform.
And we know that Governor Haley's husband is serving right now as well, and we thank him for that. Senator Scott, the national debt has nearly doubled in your time in office. The approval rate for Congress is at a mere 19%. If this were a business, you'd probably all be fired in Washington, but you're here tonight looking for a promotion. In 2013, Governor Haley hired you for the Senate. I'd like you to tell her why you should be promoted to CEO of the nation instead of her.
Certainly. One of the things I'd say is if you look at our national debt of $33 trillion, I would love to have an opportunity to have this country pass a balanced budget amendment. That would constrain the spending in Washington in the same fashion that it does in every state in our nation, number one. Number two, if you want to actually reduce our national debt, you have to grow our economy. In order to grow our economy, you need to create about 10 million jobs to grow our economy at 5%. You can do that in three specific sectors. Number one, the energy sector. We could create between 3 and 3.5 million jobs if we unleashed all of our energy resources. America is we're the richest country if you combine coal, gas, and oil. Why not unleash all of our resources? Number two, we've lost 100,000 factories. 100,000 factories in the last 25 years. If we continued on my Made in America plan, we could bring jobs back to America in a similar fashion that we did when I wrote the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. We actually lowered the corporate tax from 35% to 21%, reshored or repatriated $1.7 trillion. We brought the unemployment rates for African Americans, Hispanics, and Asians to the lowest level in the history of the country, and a 70-year low for women.
Governor Haley, would you think you would deserve the promotion over him?
Look, I appreciate Tim. We've known each other a long time, but he's been there 12 years and he hasn't done any of that. He hasn't. They've only given 4 budgets on time in 40 years. He was part of that. He increased the national debt. He voted for the spending. He has made sure that the borders are open and they haven't done anything. Look at everything that's happened. 12 years. Where have you been? Where have you been, Tim?
I voted on most of those things.
We've waited and nothing has happened.
Here's what you've done.
Here's the thing that I just find interesting.
Ron, let me finish
all
this.
These guys have said
here's the
things,
fact.
And I appreciate a lot of the things they're saying.
Nikki
I'm
Haley,
the only one up here who's gotten in the big fights and has delivered big victories for the people of Florida. And that's what it's all about. You can always talk, but when it gets hot in there, when they're shooting arrows at you, are you going to stand up for parents' rights, to keep the state free? Are you going to be able to do all those things? And in the state of Florida, because of our success, the Democratic Party lies in ruins. We have won the big fights. We have turned our state into a Republican state. People respond to leadership. I've done it while others have talked about it.
You hear that, kids? It's all about winning.
CEO of the White House, which is what I think we need. If I may just briefly interject here. We need a zero-based budgeting. That's the way businesses are actually run. Start with zero as the baseline for the budget, and then see what's actually necessary. There isn't a blue state or a red state in this union that does it. The federal government doesn't do it. But successful companies, including the ones that I've built as a CEO, will do it. And I think we need a CEO in the White House to get that done.
Governor Burgum runs a state that way. Yes,
tech
go
questions,
ahead.
you didn't ask the only guy that's been in tech. You have energy questions, you don't ask anything. But I'm just going to say right now, when you say nobody else has done it, the energy plans that have all been announced in the last month by these other folks on stage, we're already doing it in North Dakota. The border plans, we've got troops down at the border flying helicopter missions from North Dakota, from San Diego to the Gulf Coast, trying to stop transnational criminal organizations from inflicting the invasion and the mass casualties in our state. And on the energy policy, we're already doing it. And it's not saying nobody else done the big fights. North Dakota was leading the charge. We won the battle to get the Biden administration, who was ignoring the law. They were the first administration since Truman that wasn't holding the quarterly required lease sales, and we won that in federal court. WOTUS, we won that in federal court. We're fighting the Biden administration on 20 fronts. To say that nobody's fighting the big fights, just look at the record of what we're doing right now. Energy, economy, national security, I've been talking about it since day one, and now finally good, we're having the conversation about it, but we've got the answer in North Dakota.
Governor Burgum, let's talk big government. This question's for you. Big government keeps getting bigger. 1/5 of all new jobs this year have been created by the government. Governor Burgum, you say you want to shrink the size of government, but it has been a century since any president has done that. Why would you be any different?
Well, because we've done it in North Dakota. When I took office, we shrunk the state budget general fund by 27% in the first 4 months I was office, and all the trains still running on time. Why? Because you had a business leader that was actually there. Inside of every government job, there's 10 or 20% of mind-numbing, soul-sucking work that even the state and federal employees don't want to do, and you can engineer that work out of the job. That would free up right there 20% of 2 million civilian employees. And by the way, we've got 10 million jobs open. They'd have plenty to do, and they could be generating taxes instead of being paid by taxes. This is totally possible to do it if you have somebody that understands, because having worked in technology for 30 years, everything we had to do was to be better, faster, and cheaper the next day. That's what we can do in government. That's what we're doing in North Dakota.
All right. Governor DeSantis, I want to ask you about something that I think is on a lot of Republicans' minds. This election could come down to less than 50,000 votes in 3 states. Abortion was on the ballot in 6 states in 2022. Republicans lost all of them. Next year, abortion will likely be on the ballot in Arizona.
The smile.
State. Governor DeSantis, how are you going to win over independent, pro-choice voters in Arizona?
Same way we did in Florida. We won the greatest Republican victory in a governor's race in the history of the state, over 1.5 million votes. We were winning places like Miami-Dade County, Palm Beach, that nobody thought was possible because we were leading with purpose and conviction. I reject this idea that pro-lifers are to blame for midterm defeats. I think there's other reasons for that. The former president, he's missing in action tonight. He's had a lot to say about that. He should be here explaining his comments to try to say that pro-life protections are somehow a terrible thing. I want him to look into the eyes and tell people who've been fighting this fight for a long time. My wife and I earlier today were at the gravesite of President and Mrs. Reagan, and I noticed that there was a quote where it says, "Every single person has purpose and worth." We're better off when everybody counts. And I think we should stand for what we believe in. I think we should hold the Democrats accountable for their extremism, supporting abortion all the way up until the moment of birth. That is infanticide, and
it's such a fantasy. Nobody's doing that. How are you all the way up to, debating about being our president and still holding the fantasy and the notion that there's abortions approved all the way up to birth or even afterwards? I think it was last week when we were watching Trump, he was saying even after birth, they were talking about afterbirth abortions. And it's what the fuck is your fantasy world going on about?
Let me ask Governor Christie. Governor Christie, do you think that Republicans...
Yes, I will.
Okay, Governor Christie, do you think that Republicans can do that in Arizona if this referendum is on the ballot there?
Yeah, because I did it in New Jersey, Dana. You know, it's...
Then why are all these other states losing?
Well, because they don't have leaders in those states who are leading the fight the way it should be led. And in fact is, look, I was the governor here of the only blue state that's represented up here. This is where the fight is really tough for Republicans, and those are the states that we're going to have to try to win if we're going to win the White House back. And what we did is 14 times, Dana, in 8 years, I vetoed Planned Parenthood funding. 14 times. No one else gets it that much. The Democrats just kept sending it to me, and I kept saying no because I believe in life, but I also believe in states' rights. And I think we fought hard against Roe versus Wade for decades to say that states should make these decisions. So we're going to have those fights in the states. But what you need is a leader who can talk to people and make them understand that if you're pro-life, you have to be pro-life for the entire life, not just the 9 months in the womb. And we talked a lot about fentanyl tonight, and we haven't spoken one moment about treatment. But we need to make sure that for the drug-addicted 16-year-old on the floor of the county lockup, her life is precious too. And we need to be providing treatment.
He's got a point there.
To cure this as a disease that it is. If you're pro-life, you got to be pro-life for the entire life. We start talking like that, they're going to do what I did in the blue state, which was get reelected with 61% of the vote and won 70% of independents and 51% of Latinos because I told them the truth from my heart.
Thank you. Vice President Pence, the latest Univision poll found that 73% of Latino voters think the Republican Party doesn't care about or is being hostile toward them, the Hispanic community. Only Governor DeSantis has translated his campaign into Spanish. How will you reach out to Latino voters?
Well, I promise you that we're going to continue to build bridges to every community in this country. And I'm incredibly proud of that tax cut and tax reform bill. I worked on Capitol Hill to help get that bill passed into law, the largest tax cut in American history. We saw literally the lowest unemployment ever recorded for Hispanic Americans, the lowest unemployment ever recorded for African Americans, 50-year low for women. So I think the President of the United States needs to be a champion for the American dream for every American. It begins with the unborn and the aged and the infirm, and it begins with every ethnic group in this country. And I promise you, if I'm President of the United States, I'll be a champion. I'll be a champion for the American dream, for Hispanic Americans and for every American. So help me God.
Senator Scott, reaction?
Yes, there's no doubt that if you lead by example, it's the best way to get the job done. If you look at my office in the Senate, my chief of staff is the only Hispanic female chief of staff in the Senate. I hired her because she was the best, highest qualified person we have. What we need are leaders who lead by example. And I will simply say, I would love to finish my conversation with Nikki as it relates to the job that needs to get done. Nikki offered a 10-cent gas tax increase in South Carolina. Talk about someone who has never seen a federal dollar she doesn't like. 10 cents on the gallon in South Carolina. As the UN ambassador, you literally put $50,000 on curtains.
She's sassy lady.
Location. Next.
You got bad information. First of all, I fought the gas tax in South Carolina multiple times against the establishment.
Just go to YouTube.
Against the establishment.
Just go to
and
YouTube
you want to know what that
yourself.
10 cent was? When they wouldn't pass the gas tax, the establishment and the companies wanted me to do it so much that I said the only way I will pass it if you will give us three.
All you have to do is go watch Nikki Haley on YouTube.
If you will give me 3 times the deduction in income tax, then I will look at your gas tax, which is why it didn't happen.
Exactly, Ron.
Secondly, on the 50 million.
Here is a nice part.
Secondly, on the curtains, do your homework, Tim, because Obama bought those curtains.
Did you send them back?
It's in the press.
Did you send them back?
It's the State Department.
Did you send them back?
Did you send them back? You're the one that works in Congress.
Oh my gosh. You hung them on your curtains.
They were there before I even showed up at the residence. You are scrapping.
I'm not scrapping.
You know I fought
Here's a fact. Here's a fact, though.
I cut taxes. I loaded up our
You wanted a gas tax increase.
Oh my God. All right. I think we're reaching the end of this soon.
To take a commercial break. We'll have more of the second Republican debate live from the Reagan Presidential Library in just a few moments.
to write your choice on the notepad in front of you. 15 seconds. Starting now, of the people on the stage, who should be? I'm absolutely serious.
With all due respect, I mean, we're here, like, we're happy to debate, but I think that that's disrespectful to my fellow competitors.
Nobody wants to participate.
Let's do some questions. Let's talk about the future of the country.
I'll answer. I want to be clear.
Let me ask you this.
If I may.
Let me ask you something.
Yep.
Then, if you won't answer that question, let me ask you this one.
Yeah.
What is your mathematical path?
Yes.
Mathematical.
In order to try to beat President Trump, who has a commanding and enduring lead in this race?
So polls don't elect presidents. Voters elect presidents.
Right.
And we're going to take the case of the people in these early states. We're going to do it in a state-by-state direction. And why? Because as Reagan said in his day, this is our time for choosing. We are not getting a mulligan on the 2024 election. Republicans have lost 3 straight elections in a row. We were supposed to have a red wave with inflation at 9%. It crashed and burned. Not in Florida, it didn't. We delivered it in Florida. And so we've got to choose right. We've got to win. And we need somebody that's going to be able to serve 2 terms. So in January of 2023, they'll be able to address the nation saying, we turned the economy around, we secured the border, and we fended off the threat from communist China. As your president, I will get that job done.
Governor Christie, I believe I did see you write something. Governor Christie, I believe. Excuse.
Let's look up the actual, like, how do I word it in Google? Like, president election rates, like.
Excuse me. And Governor Christie, I believe I did see you write something on the card. Who was it?
No, but I'll certainly tell you.
Go.
Okay.
Yeah. Look, I think I've been the only one on this stage who's been clear about this. I vote Donald Trump off the island right now. And the reason I vote him off the island,
but any of the people on the stage,
you know what? Every person on this stage has shown the respect for Republican voters to come here to express their views honestly, candidly, and directly, and to take your questions honestly. I have respect for every man and woman on this stage because they've done it. Vivek, put your hand down for a second, would you? I still got time, dude. So chill out. Here, look. This guy has not only divided our party, he's divided families all over this country. He's divided friends all over this country. I've spoken to people, and I know everyone else has, who have sat at Thanksgiving dinner or at a birthday party and can't have a conversation anymore if they disagree with Donald Trump. He needs to be voted off the island, and he needs to be taken out of this process.
I mean, at this point, I just want him off the plate. I'm so fucking fatigued with Trump. It's not even funny.
15 seconds.
All right, you got 15 seconds,
I appreciate it. Look, I have a different view on this. I think Trump was an excellent president.
Oh, fuck.
The America First agenda does not belong to one man. It does not belong to Donald Trump. It doesn't belong to me. It belongs to you, the people of this country. And the question is, who's going to unite this country and take the America First agenda to the next level? When we...
All right, that's it. So anyways, there we have it. Second Republican primary debate. Lots of interesting issues brought up. Lots of branches we could take off of that. Perhaps we will explore some of those avenues in the future. For now, I think there's so much to take in, right? I don't know. That's a lot to take in. Definitely some interesting points. For some reason, I don't like how they brought up LGBTQ and just kind of like threw them in there for the fuck of it, because I don't feel like they really touched on the issue. They just kind of like brushed over it, like, yeah, they're crazy, and then just like moved on. So it's like, I don't have any faith in them, really, from that side. Anyways. Hey, look. So glad to have you all here. Really awesome to hang out with you. I think we're going to call it a night. And then we're going to continue next week. Mark says Trump is the Joker showing up at the ball. I mean, he really is. He's just kind of like barging in there. Thank you so much for coming, Kim. Thank you so much, Laura. Thank you so much, Mark and Cassie and Susan, for being our wonderful moderators. Tyler, good to see you. Thank you so much for coming. We all have PTSD, post-Trump stress disorder. That's true. That's true, Laura. I that's pretty true. Anyways. Yeah, well, it's really frustrating to watch this stuff, but I'm really glad I got to watch it all with you because frankly, I don't think I could do this by myself otherwise. I think I would just kind of go crazy in my head and be like, what about this? What about that? And it was nice to do it with you all so that it wasn't so, I don't know, traumatic, I guess. It's very convoluted, I think. They touch base very briefly on issues that you could take a lot of time to expand on, and then they don't do that. They just kind of brush over it and move on. So it's very confusing and discombobulating to me, really. Anyways, thank you so much, moderators. Susan, Mark, Cassie, Elise was in here earlier. Thank you so much for coming. Crystal, thank you so much for coming. Everybody else who showed up, thank you for coming. And we will see you next Friday, my friends. And we will have a much more rich thing. I think we'll take up next week. We'll take a break from politics and focus on more, I don't know, drama. I have no idea. Anyways. And thank you to everybody who sent a super chat and things like that. Oh, hey, I don't know, maybe Mark is posting a video tomorrow. Mark, are you planning on releasing a video tomorrow? Just wondering. I'm not actually sure. Anyways, check out Mark's YouTube channel. He's got great videos, and I believe he's going to be releasing a piece soon. Neogenian Oculus tomorrow? No, not so much. No, I don't think there's a live stream tomorrow, I'm pretty sure. Mark says, see you soon. Well, that's pretty cool. Ugh, my throat hurts. I have to start learning how to talk a little bit lower in my chest because it's it really hurts. Anyways, I'm losing my voice. On that note, since I'm losing my voice, I'm going to say ta-ta for now, and we will see you later. Thank you so much, everybody. Take care. I love you. Mwah, mwah. Have a good weekend. Thank you. And goodbye.